please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'd like to turn this over to our Vice President to give us action taken in closed session.
Yeah, this evening, the Board of Trustees met in closed session. I have several items, so bear with me. Two of the items are expulsions of two students. So on Tuesday, March 7th, 2017, Novato Unified School District Board of Trustees met in closed session to review the Administrative Hearing Panel's recommendation on an expulsion of student number 50059 and 50059. Based on the review of the panel's recommendation, Trustee Nell made a motion to expel the student and for the remainder of the semester, and for the following Ed Code violation of 48915C3 and 48900C. Trustee Mack was a second to that motion, and when we come out from closed session, we do a roll call vote. Trustee Millerick?
Aye.
Trustee Nell?
Aye.
Trustee Aguila? You were absent. Okay. Trustee Mack?
Aye.
Trustee Scott? Aye. President Cooper?
Aye.
And I am aye as well. Trustee Butler? And the next one, this was in regards to, we heard the Administrative Hearing Panel's recommendation on an expulsion of student 50096. And based on the review of the panel's recommendation, Trustee Millerick made the motion to expel the student for the remainder of the semester for the following Ed Code violations of 48915C3 and 48900C. Trustee Scott was a seconded the motion. The roll call vote, Trustee Millerick?
Aye.
Trustee Nell? Aye. Trustee Aguila? Absent. And Trustee Mack?
Aye.
Trustee Scott? Aye. President Cooper?
Aye.
And Trustee Butler is aye. The other item, with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. This is Cal 200, etc., versus Apple Valley USD, Novato USD, San Francisco Superior Court case number CPF-15-514477. It was an update and we gave direction. The next item is conference with labor negotiators. Chris Koska, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Employees Organization, Novato Federation of Teachers, otherwise known as NFT. That was information only. The last item we discussed was pursuant to Government Code 54957, Public Employees Dismissal, Discipline Release. This was information only. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Vice President Butler. With that, I'd like to have a motion for the approval of the agenda.
I'll move to approve tonight's agenda.
And a second, please. Trustee Nell, or Mac, Nell and Mac. All in favor? Passes 7-0. Item 8 is public comment on the consent agenda, and just to let the public know that if you have a comment, there's some blue cards over here. If you could fill those out and bring those forward. We don't have any, so we'll move on to item number 9. Go, feel free. Come on. Did you have a comment about the consent agenda?
No, not about the consent.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Mack. With that, I'd like to call for approval of the consent agenda. But prior to that, I would like to I will be pulling item G. Anybody else like to pull anything from consent? A motion?
I'll move.
Okay. Second?
Consent agenda, except item G.
Yes, sir.
Item G.
Correct. Okay, all in favor? Passes 7-0. Thank you. So at this point, we get to move on to the best part of the evening, and that is item 10, our student presentation. And welcome to San Jose Middle School. They sound great. There you go.
This way. This kid can draw too. Gibson, he's a great artist.
Hello, my name is Gibson Chadell. This is Aiden Bourbon. Aiden Bourbon, Logan Muro, Logan Music Camp, Zach Gersh, Aiden McDonald, and Naomi Gervin. And we're here to present or play a song called Catch Me If You Can. It's got a bunch of aleatoric stuff in the middle of it, which basically means we all play a bunch of notes, and it sounds really crazy, and it's pretty cool.
But intentional.
But intentional.
And where are you playing this?
Oh yeah, next Saturday, we have a jazz festival, and we're playing this along with another piece called Lingus.
Which is Snarky Puppy, you know, Snarky Puppy.
Where?
Yeah, solo.
Santa Cruz, thank you.
By me on trombone, Aiden Bourbon on alto, Logan Muro on tenor saxophone, Logan Music Camp on trumpet, Zach Gersh on piano, and Naomi Gervin on bass.
Good job. Good job, Gibson.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. That was awesome.
Good luck next weekend.
Those are middle schoolers, folks.
And isn't that amazing?
They're not playing pop. That's real jazz.
See you in high school.
Yeah.
What's that? Oh, yeah, reset. Sorry. All right, now we're on to, that was great. Item 11, our presentation tonight is about regarding the North Marin Water District. And Yancey's here to kick us off. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Trustee Cooper. I just want to introduce Drew McIntyre from the North Marin Water District, and he's got a pretty exciting report of some things that they're doing and how they're going to positively impact us, and from a environmental standpoint as well as potentially a fiscally standpoint as well. So I'll turn it over to him. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Yancey. Mr. President, fellow board members, thank you for the opportunity tonight to give you just a kind of a brief overview and update on our recycle water project. It's a tough act to follow, right? Tough act to follow. I'm not going to be anywhere near as entertaining as the last group. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. So I've got about 10 slides. Feel free to have this be interactive. If you have any questions as I go through this presentation, don't hesitate to holler. So a little bit of history here. As I talk about the Recycle Water Project in North Marin, I want to just in full disclosure say that a lot of this work was done in cooperation with Novato Sanitary District. And as I go through this, you'll even see that we've partnered with Las Galinas Valley Sanitary District to the south. But you can see here in this chronology that we've been working on recycled water for a long time, first starting in 1991. And it really wasn't until the Stone Tree, previously known as the Black Point Golf Links project, kicked off that we were able to kind of launch the project. That was our first anchor customer. And I'll talk a little bit, that was in 2007. And you can see in here, then we expanded to what I term the north and the south and the central service areas. And I'll talk a little bit about that. And it really has been an explosive expansion since we first started serving Stone Tree Golf Course. I mentioned again our local partners here. The three local agencies, it's important to emphasize that North Marin is the distributor of the recycled water, and Novato San is the producer for the north and the central, and Las Galinas is the producer of the recycled water. So we can't do this without having this partnership locally between these three agencies. And we form or make up part of North Bay Water Reuse Authority, which are other additional agencies in the North Bay that we've been successful to come together as a regional effort and get some federal funding to help us with these projects. So what do we mean when we talk about the north and the central projects? I'm sorry if these maps are a little bit hard to read, but kind of the dashed green line initially was our first foray into the recycled water. That was for Stone Tree Golf Course. And then after that, as part of North Bay Water Reuse Authority, our next project in 2012 was our North Service Area Expansion. That's in the green line. And with that North Service Area Expansion, a lot of it went along Olive. It went up to Valley Memorial Cemetery and out to Fireman's Fund, and also past Olive School. So in 2012, that system was up and running. We retrofitted all the sites, including Olive School, to receive recycled water. And that was completed in 2012. And then we focused, and I'm going to come back to the red in a second here, but then we focused on going to the south in our south service area, and that's where we teamed up with Las Colinas, and we got the recycled water from Las Colinas through a transmission pipeline up into Hamilton and delivered it to various Hamilton end users, including the Hamilton School, including the charter school as well. So that was in 2013. So in those 2 years, we were quite active on the recycled water front. And so now in 2017, fast forward, we're back to the central service area, which you can see in red. And that particular project is underway right now. It's in construction. If you drive around, you can see some purple pipe in various areas. If you're going over to Costco, you'll notice you might be interrupted a little bit with some pipeline installation there, as well as on Roland, and we're making our way down to Ignacio. This red extension with the central expansion, that again is part of obviously our cooperation with Novato Sanitary District. They're working on some improvements at their facility to handle the increase in recycled water demands associated with our pipeline extensions. And as part of the central expansion if you work your way further south, you can see that we extend out Ignacio and we terminate it at Marin Country Club. And as this board is well aware, there's been a recent request from both Novato Unified School District as well as College of Marin to do a feasibility study to determine, the cost effectiveness, if you will, of extending further west on Ignacio to serve San Jose Middle School, where our band members are from, as well as extending out to College of Marin Indian Valley campus. So that's a project that's jointly funded right now, as you're aware, from Novato Unified School District as well as College of Marin. Newt Engineering is under contract. We just had a kickoff meeting earlier actually on Monday, yesterday. So we're off and rolling on that, and we'll have more reports at a future date with that feasibility study. Any questions so far? Okay.
You can see the purple pipe along the bike trail going in Marin.
Correct.
They're up on the bike trail, laying pipe.
Yeah, that's been a fast track project.
Yeah, they're working weekends.
Was there a question?
Yeah. So when did you think you'll be heading towards Ignacio, about the time frame?
So the contractor that's laying the pipe on the west side of 101 started up on Roland, and they're working their way south right now. As was reported, they're working on that bike path on Caltrans property, and they already have the pipe in Marin. That's already been installed. So in probably another 2 to 3 weeks, they'll start in Entrada and work through Entrada to get to Ignacio Boulevard. So Ignacio Boulevard, I'm guessing will probably be about 6 weeks, and then head on up west to Marin Country Club.
Great, and congratulations on your job titles.
Oh, thank you.
And Superintendent Hogaboom, you had an interesting question, pretty pertinent.
So can you define what exactly recycled water is and what it's exactly used for?
Yes. Recycled water is, we talk about the sanitary districts being the producers. They normally produce what's called secondary treated water at their treatment plants. And secondary, they've gone through 2 major treatment processes to produce the water quality that's necessary for discharge into the bay. For tertiary, for recycled water, there's a 3rd level of treatment required. It's tertiary. It's essentially deemed tertiary treatment. It's additional filtering and disinfection that's on top of the primary and secondary process at the treatment plants. So the water that's used here in Novato is the highest level of tertiary treatment. In terms of the state of California, it's permitted for full unrestricted access, and it's typically used for landscape irrigation. We actually have been converting some of the car washes now in Novato for recycled water. So it's essentially the full unrestricted access that you can get with this level of treatment, albeit it's not drinking water, right? We're not to that level. But what we're certainly, it's the right water for the right use of what we're talking about for landscape irrigation, car washes, cooling towers, and what have you.
Quick question. So it looks like we're already running recycled water at some of our campuses. Like I know Olive has it. Looks like Rancho is getting it from the pipe.
Rancho does not have it yet.
But okay, but they're proximate.
Correct.
Okay.
It's a
San
future
Jose
idea.
potentially. Any other campuses?
Yeah, so down in the Hamilton area,
Of course,
Hamilton
right.
Elementary School,
And the charter?
and the charter, and
Okay.
then as part of the central project, we will be converting the Linwood School, Linwood Elementary.
Okay.
So that's happening this spring, summer, as part of this central expansion.
Right. Okay.
We have some future projects to go up to Novato High.
Okay.
As well as Rancho. We are not anticipating any extension all the way out to San Marin. It's just too far
That's
west
where I was gonna go.
for the demands.
What about with the golf course out there, Indian Valley Golf Course, as far as bringing it out to Indian Valley and then hitting the high school on the way?
Indian Valley Golf Course already received, they take, because of their proximity, obviously to Stafford Lake, they get raw water right out of Stafford Lake.
That was drinking water.
It is.
They're
It's
using that
raw,
as
it's the
recycled?
raw water before it goes
Okay.
through the treatment plant.
Trustee Miller.
So in San Francisco, as buildings move to a LEED standard, they have a gray water objective, so toilets are serviced with a gray water. I mean, it's not gray, it's tertiary treated, I think. I don't know the standard. Is there, for any of our campuses, are we looking at this water for like flushing of toilets or in use other than drinking water, but interior use as opposed to landscape use?
Good question. It could be. That's one of our questions right now with College of Marin, with the revamp of the Indian Valley campus and any new construction, is that would be an additional permitted use, which would be using recycled water for flushing of toilets. That's used within Marin Municipal Service Territory in multiple locations. We have not done that yet here in Novato, but we are looking at it.
Okay, so is there a write-up on that? You could email Greg Nelson and me or the board, so we could just, is there a link to a website to learn more about that use?
Absolutely. In fact, it's being looked at even at the state level for requiring, not only at San Francisco's doing it at the local level, but it's being looked at the state level to mandate that for all future commercial buildings.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought nationwide, the rules are changing.
They're looking at changing the plumbing code to introduce that.
So I have an off-topic question when we finish this.
How off topic is it?
Well, it should come after every other question about recycled water, because it's not a recycled water question, it's just a water question.
Well, why don't
Okay.
you ask it?
Highway 37 now floods. Apparently, it's reduced in elevation because of some reason. Have you been following that exercise? Are you familiar at all with the root cause of what's going on out there?
I'm not sure I want to get boxed into that corner of the highway.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think that would be a different time.
Okay. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you. That's an appropriate answer. Thank you. Yeah. Not now, sir. Thanks.
All right.
Bet. So in here, just in Novato service area expansion, here's just some of the numbers that you can see that we've been accomplished in terms of treatment capacity, expanded treatment plant capacity, pipelines, storage, total number of meters. When Stone Tree was launched, we had one customer, essentially Stone Tree. Now we're looking with the central expansion of going from 1 to 83 customers. So it's a significant expansion. And then you can see there from Novato Unified School District's perspective, the different meters at the locations. Again, at the north, that was Olive School. The south was Hamilton Elementary as well as the charter. And then in the central right now, with this initial central expansion, is Linwood School. And with each of these sites, not only do we bring the pipeline in front of the property, but we also work with your staff and go on site and do what's called on-site retrofit. We prepare a design, and then we actually do the physical retrofit out at the site. We make sure that there's no unapproved use of recycled water at these locations that we're going to retrofit. Again, the ball fields, et cetera. Pretty common things. If there's a snack shack or a drinking water fountain and they're going to be hit with recycled water, we change the design so that doesn't take place. We go and we make sure that there's no interconnections or cross connections. The state of California has some other kind of common sense rules to try to make sure that there isn't any accidental use of recycled water and mistaking it for potable water, so we don't have any hose bibs on recycled water systems. We use quick disconnect couplings, purple labeling of the pipes and the valves, and then the application period is typically at night, which is what's usually occurring in any event. So that takes place at each site, and the water district pays for that on-site retrofit cost for the design and actually the implementation. As I mentioned before, we expect Linwood to happen later this spring, early summer, and we are coordinating with Novato Unified District staff on that. When these campuses do receive recycled water, it's important to emphasize a couple immediate benefits. Number one, it's drought-proof supply, right? We got plenty of it. There's no restrictions. Also, it's less costly for the Unified School District. We don't have a summer surcharge rate on the recycled water that we do on the potable water. So it's roughly about 8% on an annual basis. It ends up being about 8% below our potable water rate structure.
8%?
8%, right. So you will see some economic benefit as well as the drought-proof supply and just, again, the right water for the right use. This is just a graph, again, showing our acceleration of the red are the number of meters, the green is the actual recycled water demand increasing over time. This map is originally, and you could barely see it up in the upper right-hand corner, a couple little dots, the golf course, and we also served the fire station house with our initial expansion of recycled water. Then when we did our north and south, you can see our various customers in the north and in the south. And as you can imagine, when we expand recycled water, we go to the largest users of recycled water, and that's why we went to the cemetery, fireman's fund, and a lot of the common area landscaping and schools down in Hamilton. And then finally here, you can see the new customers that we're bringing online in yellow with the central expansion. And that row of yellow dots at the bottom there, that's Ignacio. And then, again, as I mentioned before, we're looking at further west in cooperation with Novato Unified School District and College of Marin on Ignacio. So in the end, I think we can all appreciate that we don't want to use potable water on our lawns if we don't have to. And with this recycled water project here in Novato, by just a few years from now, in 2020, we expect to have about 2 million gallons per day of recycled water, representing about 15% of our total demand. And we couldn't do it without the support of our customers, not the least of which is the school district. So thanks again.
That's Stone Tree, I think.
That is Stone Tree.
Great. Thank you very much. Trustee Millerick?
So one important point is if you've been up to Indian Valley campus or some of our campuses during this time of drought when there's been statewide mandates to cut costs, our landscape has deteriorated, not because we chose to, but because it was mandated. And having a drought resistant supply that at times of drought, we do not have to change our landscape plans because we're mandated to. We can do what we choose to in terms of conservation and application. Is going to be a huge benefit, and it will make a big difference. So that's, to me, half the benefit is it allows us to control our own destiny. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Millerick. Anyone else, comments? No? Thank you very much for
Okay.
coming. I appreciate the update, and keep us posted.
Great, will do. Thank you for your
Good
time.
work. All right. It's at this time we'll have announcements from the board, students, starting with the student trustees. Welcome, and thank you for coming as always.
Hi.
Paige,
It's been a long time since I've been up here. So,
I know we missed you.
yeah, had a good time. So, before I left, I was able to participate in a leadership convention at Redwood High. It was placed at Redwood High, but it had students from the Novato High, San Marin, pretty much every school that's around here. All the leadership kids, Link Crew kids, wellness at the schools that have the wellness centers, and then Avid. About 10 from each class were allowed to come participate in the leadership convention, and we all just kind of discussed like what we do at our schools and what works and what doesn't work, how to eliminate conflict in the school and have us all unified. And I think it was amazing. It was really great to hear what other schools do and how they like unify their school, as in pulling in kids from each class into like separate units instead of having the class splits. Like they do like houses, so it's like a group of seniors, freshmen, and sophomores and juniors all in one. But they're like 4 separate groups of what house you're in. Instead of at the rallies, it's not a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior split. So that really like unifies the entire school instead of like, for instance, at Novato High, we have a problem with classes not liking the junior class because we like to win the spirit point competitions and they're just a little jealous. And so it just helps unify the school. And it was really interesting. We found out about the wellness program, which none of our kids have ever heard. And we were just fascinated, and we cannot wait to get ours up and running. So we're hoping to have that in a couple of school years, which is pretty much like a health center for like sexual education, for mental health. If you need somewhere to like go sit, if you're like feeling anxious, that's like a safe place to go. And so we're really excited for it. And it's gonna be like student run, I'm pretty sure. And then we have, on March 17th, we have the student versus staff basketball game at 7 p.m. in the new gym. If you guys want to come attend that, it's after school, so we're going to see the students cream the staff. And then we had a Dine and Donate on March 3rd at Chipotle. It was a fundraiser for the 2018 class, and it went well as far as I heard. I was working, so I didn't get to go, but I heard it went really well. The Tour of Novato is coming up, and we're hoping to get lots of our students riding in it, but it is on the SAT date, so yeah. The coin war is sneaking up on us, and the funds we decided will be donated to a camp for children with cancer. So that's where our funds are going to go for our coin war. Our spring rally will be on April 7th, and that's when our ASB and class presidents will be announced. And those like interviews for those are running right now. We're about to have these speeches for running for class presidents. And then on St. Patrick's Day, we're planning on wearing green, handing out cookies at lunch, which is kind of like tradition at Novato High. And then we had our Love and Kindness Spirit Week, and we had amazing participation in it. We had a speaker named Anthony Trucks came in, and he was amazing. I was not there. Somebody FaceTimed me during it, though, so I can watch it while I was in Arizona. And he did an amazing job. It went really well. I could not have been happier with it. And then we have our fashion show on March 11th, and we would love if you guys could come to it. So it's going to be $10 at the door, but there's not going to be dinner if you come at the door. The tickets were supposed to be sold. Oh, the RSVPs were on March 3rd, but we didn't have a meeting last week, so I couldn't get that in. But it is $10 at the door, and that's where you'll just see the show at 8 o'clock. And we would love if all of you would come to it. The theme is all around the world. So it's going to be like Japan and Italy and stuff like that. And then we have the SAT preps going on for all of our juniors and seniors at Novato High, just trying to really get down on it, as well as the JRP, the Junior Research Project, is starting, which is really exciting. I'm thrilled for it. And all the juniors, we are hoping we have like our few last ones that we're grabbing, but all the juniors are signed up for their classes for next year, and we're really working on fundraising for our prom.
and we talked about colleges, and in my personal junior appointment, we talked about college and what our plans for the future are. And I think that's really important to get started at juniors instead of all of it at seniors. You're like, oh, well, I have to go to college. The sophomore speeches, the finals are coming up this Friday. Our semifinals were on Monday. And so I've heard the speeches are really great. I went to the dance show, and that was amazing. MSA Dance does not get enough credit. Nobody really told me about it, but they did an amazing job. It was an outstanding performance. And then our ASB and Link Crew applications are in, and we're excited to welcome Mr. Tabor and Miss Kinney to our coordinators, our 2 new coordinators, as well as Miss Sanner for our Link Crew. And we're just excited for all the new minds that are coming into Novato High as student government. And that's all. Off to you.
Thank you. That was great. Sorry, 1 second. I have a question from Trustee Scott.
Paige, I want to ask you a question. You were talking about the class presidents, I guess the various classes. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? What's involved with that? Is that just the leadership that's doing that? Is that students throughout the campus that want to run? Are they running campaigns? Are they giving speeches? Can you just elaborate a little bit more on that and what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so pretty much anybody in the entire school is welcome to run for class president. You are required to you're required to apply for ASB, but you can't just go straight and apply for class president. And we have campaigns, and we have a campaign week where we do all campaigns throughout the week, and then we have speeches for each candidate, and they're allowed to come up. You can run for ASB president or one of the class presidents. And then actually our leadership teacher does choose who the vice president and secretary for each class is, and the treasurer. So that's not decided by the student body, but the student body does vote on who the president is for ASB and for each class.
Great, thank you.
Well, along with Paige, we do have our Fashion Week. That's about where the similarities end. We had our JRP going on too, and the SAT prep. We have those things as well. But we have our career and the arts day. The Later Star Committee, I'm pretty sure some of you were there. STEM interviews are going on. Those are going to be for the 17-18 school year, and hopefully that goes well. I'm pretty sure it will. The Linnea Drama Festival is going on. Our drama arts recently attended the Linnea Drama Festival, where our students earned a bronze medal for the I Never Saw Another Butterfly play, and another bronze medal for the musical theater of I'm Changing My Major. Though we had our WASC visit, which, as far as I'm aware, went very well. MASH is going to be our spring play this year. Music Man is our spring musical this year. And for those of you who don't know, next week is Pi Day on, I think it's what?
It's the 14th.
Yeah, the 14th.
March, because it's 3.14.
Yeah. Yeah, so 3.14. I think it's on, as far as I'm aware, I think it's on Tuesday, right? And what my school is doing is basically this year, for the first time, the whole math department is getting together and throwing games, having fun, so that out in the courtyard, I guess would be where we were taking it. And it's going to be really interesting. We're going to have games, math themed. Everything's going to be math themed, Pi. Everybody, the teachers want us to wear like Albert Einstein shirts or like 3.14 or whatever. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have our By Reality program, which is going on March 20th. We have Golden Ribbon Award for the site visitation on Tuesday, March 21st. We have the Equity Assemblies, which I'm a part of. It's going on today, or it went on today, and it's going on tomorrow. And I can give you the times for that in a little bit if you want to go. Congressman Jared Huffman went to San Marin on March 3rd. We're getting more Chromebooks under the resource students. I don't know what that is. Our senior fashion show is going to be on Saturday, March 11th, and our Super Saturday Academy is happening the same day, from 8:30 to 12:45. And yesterday I was at the DAC meeting, the all-day DAC meeting, and we reviewed the LCAP and our National Equity Program. Thank you.
Trustee Millerick,
This
thank you very
evening,
much.
yeah, thank you.
Oh, Paige, sorry.
Sorry, I forgot a few things I was supposed to mention.
Oh,
So
great.
we had our Saturday Academy. We actually had one for leadership. It was really fun. But I had one I went for like chem, and it ended up being like really successful. A lot of kids went to it, and I was really impressed. I didn't think anybody was going to show up. Nobody wants to go to school on a Saturday. And then we have one coming up on April 1st for our juniors, and it's a junior fundraiser for the JRP prep. And then we have our MSA vocal did make it to the Golden State Voices competition. They made it up there, which is our first school in a long, apparently it's the first time in a long time for them to make it to that far up. That's what I've heard from all the MSA vocal kids, and they're really excited to participate. And if they win, they will win the award for the first time for Novato High.
Nice. Cool. Thank you. Trustee Miller, now we'll go to you.
This evening, before the meeting started, I went over to the College of Marin at Indian Valley campus. The WASC committee is in visiting the College of Marin for their recertification. They're off probation. They're fully certified, but this is a reevaluation. And they came up to talk to the Novato community to see if the campus and the institution was serving, how well it was serving Novato, as well as visiting the Kentfield campus to see how well it was serving them. And there were 30 people present to talk to the WASC committee and help them understand what Novato needs.
Great.
So.
Great. Thank you. Trustee Nell?
A couple of things. I just want to remind everyone that School Fuel, the foundation that raises funds for our school district, has the tour coming up on May 6th. So hopefully put that on your schedule. They're currently soliciting sponsors. So if anyone's interested in sponsoring the event, this is the time to go online and sign up for that. I also wanted to thank staff and the rest of you for putting together the trip to Hillsdale High to take a look at their new facilities that they've constructed and the facilities they've modernized, as well as their high-tech lighting on their athletic facility. Wanted to just express appreciation for the members of the community that turned out as well to visit. It was a fairly impressive group, and I hope that we will learn from what they did as we go forward on our own bond initiative. And just on Monday, I too was at the district advisory committee meeting where we reviewed our LCAP and our national equity program. And I just wanted to thank our students. We had good input this time from our students, and I hope that you guys continue to speak up. And that's it.
Thank you. Trustee Aguila?
Yeah. And I also went to the field trip with San Mateo and visit the facilities and the lights. And I want to thank, again, also the staff for putting this together and community members for getting involved and coming, and teachers and coaches. So it was very nice to be able to be together and learn and move forward. So I attended a DLAC meeting on the 28th, and that was, I give thanks to Melissa Diaz, and she's doing a great job and trying very hard to do outreach to the community, the Latino community, and just have better communication altogether. With the Bully Prevention Committee that I co-chair, I and my co-chair also attended the speaker during Kindness Week, and that was with Anthony Truck. And afterwards, it was a wonderful talk. He, famous basketball player, and he just talked about his trials. And so what happened was afterwards we went to the schools and talked to Novato High, actually, and spoke to some of the students, got some feedback, and were able to reach to some of the students who attended the presentation but maybe didn't quite connect. So we were able to make that connection between their talk and how it applies to the real life and to their current life, Also went to, attended the Novato Blue Ribbon Coalition for Youth executive meeting, and during the Kindness Week, I went to Novato High and the Sinaloa and San Jose, and they just participated in observing and going through the No One Eats Alone week. On March 6th, went to the special education potluck. It was right here in this room. Wonderful attendance. Talked about just concerns, and parents were there, teachers were there, so that was also great to see. I also attended the district advisory committee, learned about the LCAP and the National Equity Project. Attended the dual immersion day, and that was on the 13th. And again, we're moving forward, and I always like to thank our staff for always thinking about all students, minorities as well. On March 1st, Marine Coalition had Mary Jane Burke be one of the speakers, along with Diane Conti, and they talked about, Mary Jane Burke especially talked about the importance of the connection between the school districts and the whole Marin County schools. She focused on the importance of attending IVC. And yeah, I think that's it. So that's it.
Thank you. Trustee Mack.
I'll try not to be redundant because I did a lot of that stuff as well, but we'll just touch on Hillsdale. Great visit, not just for the originally stated purpose of viewing lights in action, but seeing their STEM wing and seeing their PAC, both of them, was pretty impressive. And seeing how they did it, and frankly, I think I learned a few things about how we might even do better, but I don't know if we'll have 2 PACs. But anyway, it was a great visit. Well worth it. Thank you for putting it together, Jim. And I'm not sure who, and Gladys, I guess? Leslie. Thank you, Leslie. It was a great visit. Worked out well. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Scott.
I was also in attendance on that field trip, and my extended thanks to everybody who helped out with that. I was really appreciative of how many people went. So I was really appreciative of the communication and the outreach. So thank you for doing that. I know that that's time-consuming work, but I felt it was really needed. The other thing I want to make an announcement to the board, our student trustee, if you will, commented on it. At Samarin High, we're going to be doing the financial literacy on March 20th. That's with one of our partners, Redwood Credit Union. All of the seniors are going to be doing it. And what I'm doing is I'm looking for volunteers. So any of my board members that would like to volunteer on March 20th, we need to be at the site at 7:30. It's going to be from about 7:30 to 11 a.m. If you guys want to sign this up, I could certainly use some more volunteers. I will pass this around. Thank you.
Trustee Butler.
No comment.
I was able to go. Are you sure? I know you went. You were at that Hillsdale High thing, and I'm just about to cover that quickly. I'm really grateful to Leslie and staff for putting that together, and the trip was great. It's been a long time since I've ridden in a school bus, but I don't want to say how long, but I really appreciate everybody going, all the trustees. That was really valuable, and all the neighbors, and it was a great trip. So I also wanted to point out that the MCSBA has the Golden Bell event, and the deadline for nominating Trustee of the Year is March 10th, so that's coming up. If any of you are inclined to do that, that would be a deadline to watch. And I was able to go to San Marin High and listen to Jared Huffman. He did a great job. He he totally enthralled the crowd, and he had, I don't know, there were probably 80 or there were a lot of kids there, and really great. He has a couple things he's working on. He offered to the kids Congressional Application App Award Challenge and the Congressional Art Competition. So, and I suppose that would be information you could get at the schools or through his website. And that's it for me. Thanks. Lieutenant Hogan.
Thank you, President Cooper. Just 3 quick things. So Thursday, we have our Technology Advisory Committee. It's an all-day meeting to talk about our vision for technology in the district, and also how we would roll out a one-to-one next year or one-to-world for certain
grade levels and how we might start that out. So there's a guy named Travis from the ice school that's going to be coming and working with a lot of our teachers who are piloting the one-to-one initiative. So if anybody can drop by the Hill Center, it's from 8:30 to 3:30. I met with Police Chief Adam McGill, who I've been very impressed with, by the way, and we've been talking and working with Leslie. We're going to put out, there's a lot of our immigrants that are still scared about a lot of things. And so one of the things that we realize we need to do is clarify the relationship between law enforcement and ICE. So I think we sent a tentative date of April 17th to have at Hill, where we'll talk with our immigrant community and anybody else who wants to come. Again, about a lot of our own students and families didn't get the memo that we put out about, trying to protect our students and being safe on campus. And then again, I think clarifying the police role as well as the sheriff's role. So I think we're going to try to see if we can get the sheriff there as well. So that again's on April 17th. And then finally, Ed Leader 21 is hosting some of their member districts on Monday and Tuesday to talk about equity and diversity and inclusion. Because of a lot of the work that we're doing with the National Equity Project, who's actually facilitating that part of it, I'm going to that, so I'll be away on Monday and Tuesday, but it should be a good learning. And the whole question is, how do you use equity? How does equity intersect with, for them, the 4 C's, which are critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and creativity? So hopefully I'll bring back some good ideas from that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jim?
Yes.
I've arranged so I can spend part of Thursday at the tech session. Thank you. You're welcome.
Did you have a comment, Jeff?
No, this is something I actually forgot to say.
Oh,
I
go
feel
ahead.
like I didn't give enough time to speak about our equity assembly, and for me this is really close to my heart. And what happened, what we're doing it on is basically racism and microaggressions and just how that affects us at school. And we're giving a bunch of personal stories, and I just feel like I didn't give it enough time and enough attention. So sorry.
Thank you for amending that. That's great. It's at this point in the meeting where we have give the public an opportunity to address the board, and I have 2 blue cards. If anyone else would like to fill one out, now would be the time to have a comment on anything that's not on the agenda. And I have 2. So would Roman Walk come forward? I hope I pronounced that.
No, that's good. That's good.
Got close? Okay.
I guess right here.
Welcome. Yes.
So I'm a resident of Novato. My son goes to Rancho Elementary. And I just wanted to say a few things about the San Marin High School Lights Stadium project. I'm a big fan of sports. But I'm also, being a resident of Novato, I cherish the peace here and the quiet. So I'm an acoustical consultant. I have about 10 years of experience working with environmental noise. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to kind of share my perspective on what I've seen in this project. I read the EIR. I actually heard about this on Friday before the deadline for the comment period ended, so I didn't make any comments on the draft EIR. But again, I've worked in environmental noise for more than a decade, and I've read through this EIR, and I have some concerns that I'd like to go through. I know I have 2 minutes, so I'm going to be brief. First of all, the EIR already states that there's an impact that is significant and that may be unavoidable. That's impact N1, and it does not seem to be resolved. It has to do with the PA system and a certain metric. It's known as the L5, which is the loudest 3 minutes of any hour. The EIR already states that they anticipate this may not be avoidable. It depends on loudspeaker directivities and some of the engineering that will go on for the project. However, what caught my attention with the noise section in this EIR is that there's no metric to address changes in average noise during the event. Only the loudest 3 minutes in an hour and the maximum noise level, the absolute maximum, or the long-term 24-hour average. There is nothing to address the average during the game. And this is industry standard methodology that's missing from the EIR. And I think that's very telling that that's missing, because it may totally change the findings. I don't know. Again, I'm just, that may be a question to raise with the consultant who put it together. The other thing I noticed is that the baseline study for where they did measurements of existing conditions, they used a certain metric that shows higher levels. It has to do with the meter response, and it doesn't use an industry standard slow meter response. And what that does is it makes the existing conditions look a little higher than they would otherwise. So that's a question. Also, a lot of local noise ordinances are going towards defining ambient and setting limits on that. Novato doesn't. It uses the loudest 3 minutes and the absolute max. And the EIR follows that as opposed to industry standard methodologies. So I think the big question is, was this peer reviewed? And if not, I think it should be, because some of these things are significant. Thank you.
So, do we have your information available? Did you provide it to
Yes.
Gladys so the superintendent can reach out to you?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much for coming. Good. Thanks, Ross. The last one I have is for Thomas Turk, please. Turk.
So thank you once again for the opportunity to speak. I spoke to you a few weeks ago about an entirely different matter. You'll remember that I sent an open letter to all of you expressing my concerns and the concerns of my neighbors. You do have me at a little bit of a disadvantage here, though, too. Apparently there was a field trip down south that I guess there was some community outreach. Well, I wasn't reached out to, so I'm at a disadvantage there. In spite of that, I've had the opportunity to speak with Tony F. I'm going to have to abbreviate his name because out of respect, Franceschini, out of respect for his name, I'm not going to accidentally butcher it. So it's been an interesting exchange. I'm actually not going to, with the time that I have here, go into too much of that. I do perceive that there's a little bit of a Maslow's hammer approach to this here. I get the sense that there's a little bit of tunnel vision where to go with this. Little formulaic. I mean, it seems like with San Diego, with down San Mateo, okay, we have a problem. We need lights for stadium. Well, okay, the neighbors don't like that. Well, what do? We quash the feedback there too. In particular, my concern here is the somewhat draconian application, while it's legal, Government Code 53094 does tend to alienate you from the neighbors that you're ostensibly supporting or ostensibly serving. And it also speaks to a little bit to a lack of faith in the democratic process. You know, we've all agreed, look, we have these codes that we want to live by, and you exempt yourself from that. To me, it also speaks to a little bit of a lack of confidence in the correctness of your solutions. You just pretty much have to say, look, we're not going to listen to the city's planning review board and, the inspectors and stuff like that. We're just going to do what we want to do. Convince me that I'm wrong if this is in fact the case, but the point is it's deadly silence in terms of what's going on there. If I can be an agent of communication, that there is this resentment of sort of exempting yourself from that, maybe you need to do better outreach. I don't know. But the point being is if you tend to hold your neighbors in contempt and disrespect, they'll only lower their respect for you. And, so what can we do? I mean, in addition to this, right now it seems like, lights, PA system, this is the way we're going to do it, our game, our way or the highway. Let's talk about this. I mean, are there alternatives? I can go ahead and take that offline with the remaining 10 seconds. I don't think I have enough to actually go into that. But I would just like to see that, there's an opportunity for students to be involved, for example. Let's talk. All right? So that's my time. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
We have this gentleman's contact information.
We will shortly.
Please.
Thank you, Leslie. All right. That's the last card. So on to item 14, staff report, and it'd be the bond implementation update. Assistant Superintendent Yancey Hawkins.
I haven't updated my spreadsheet yet, but I will. just need time. I got to get my mom under wraps first.
Go high tech and low tech.
Hey, it all works out, right?
Okay, your name's
I took a picture. We got photographic evidence. It's just a prop. It's not. We're not going to talk about anything individually on there. So.
No, I'll have to talk about
Oh, Ross?
it.
All right.
You all set, Yancy?
I am now. All righty. Thank you, President Cooper. So I wanted to go over a few of the items working in terms of the bond implementation. The first was just to say how thankful I am that Monday was the first day of our new Executive Director of Facilities, Mike Woolard, who is here tonight. I gave him a whole day before he had a night meeting. But no, we are very excited to have him. We've talked about him before, but we're very lucky to have him on our team, and just bringing him around to the sites Monday. I am more sure than ever that he was a good choice for us. On to a couple of projects. The board approved the San Ramon Roof, Novato High School, and Olive Sewer projects at the last meeting to start moving forward with those. Tonight, the budgets for those projects will be brought forward for the board's consideration, as well as the architecture contract for the roof repair at San Ramon. So we're going to be moving forward with that. You should expect in the next couple of meetings to start seeing some additional contracts and requests to go out for bid on those projects in the next few meetings, as we would like to finish those projects over the summer. In terms of the bond implementation committee, we had our fourth meeting on the 1st of this month, and it was a really great meeting. In the meeting, we went over, as we always do, the ballot language to really focus that we're focusing on what the voters intended with those funds. We looked at certain allocations, like the tier 1 projects, those kind of significant deferred maintenance projects, and those ADA upgrades or other required upgrades by DSA. So we had to put some money away for those projects, as well as for some IT infrastructure upgrades that need to happen over the course of the bond, and putting aside the student device funds that was to be used over the course of the bond program. So as the board will be making some decisions on that likely in the next couple of months, potentially with the one-to-one model. And so we also went through and reviewed our criteria for prioritization that the committee had come up with, obviously with educational impact being our top criteria, but several other criteria, including maximizing and leveraging funds from state and other sources, community use, long-term planning, programmatic needs. There's a few others, but we went through all of those. And then the committee had an assignment after their last meeting to do a survey, selecting what they would consider their top 15 projects for prioritization. At the meeting, we discussed those projects, and then we did some exercises going in on how we could further prioritize those projects. And we did a top 5 of the projects that came in the top 15. We looked at a top 3 value projects, so kind of a bang for your buck approach when we looked at it, and a top 3 need. We kind of talked about there's things we want and there's things that we really need. So we'll be using this data along with the survey data, along with obviously, some of our own thoughts around planning for the projects, that long-term planning piece, to bring the committee a recommendation at the next meeting for the projects to really look at that first $100 million of projects. So we're going through that, and it's been a really great process. I've been really thankful. Paige and Jeffrey aren't here, but they were at the last meeting, and they brought up some really great points, and it was really good to have some student feedback in that committee at our high school level. Moving on to the Citizens Oversight Committee, I believe we have one of our members here tonight, but later in the meeting we will be recommending the appointment of our Citizens Oversight Committee. We are very lucky to have had a significant amount of applications, and we met with them last week, and we were able to bring a recommendation to seat 6 of the seats for the Citizens Oversight Committee. So really excited. We've got some great people and a great diversity around the community, bringing a lot of different, not just points of view, but also a lot of great expertise. And we'll definitely be tapping into some of those things. And then that is about it. With that, I will open it up to questions. Yes.
All right, trustees. Trustee Aguila.
Yeah. Can we get data of these posters and the data of these posters?
Absolutely. We're taking that data, compressing it into a more kind of usable form as we come up with our recommendations to the committee.
Thank you.
Maybe just to address the question, though, the way that the dots worked, it's people were given 5 dots for educational
top
impact.
5. Yeah, top 5 basically. Yeah, they're
Right.
top 5
and
projects.
Then 3 dots for bang for the buck.
Yep.
And then 3 dots for
need.
So you can see the light blue was the 5.
The colors are different. Yes.
Yeah, and
thank
they're
you.
different colors. So the first round out was light blue, and then the next round out was like the purple, and then the blacks, I think. And you can see how people start, basically educational need, that was one thing, but then when you start factoring in dollars, people started changing their tune, and a lot of it went where Yancey is right now, because you start equating the need that you're trying to meet with the dollars it costs, and the equation changes, especially for some of the items.
Thanks for bringing that up.
But anyway.
And I think
that's
it's
the gist
important
of
to note that, we're taking this feedback along with, our experts, WLC, the architects who did our facilities master plan, and Greystone West, our construction management company, and really trying to come up with a plan to, that takes into consideration staging, that takes into consideration state bond dollars and where that is. And so kind of adding some of those additional factors. Also looking at some of those programmatic needs that, the board and the district may have, and really trying to marry those to come up with a good recommendation for the board. So ultimately, this committee is a superintendent's advisory committee that'll help Superintendent Hogaboom make a recommendation to this board, and then this board will ultimately make a decision on which projects that we want to move ahead with first. So,
Trustees, Trustee Miller.
Since I can barely read, I can see the dots, but I can't read the English words next to them.
Yeah.
So this seems to be an exercise in a high priority, what do we need to do first kind of assessment.
Yes.
Based on, I came to school this morning and I'm upset about, or I saw some issue, that kind of. I assume the people who put the dots on there are school personnel?
So the committee includes school personnel, it includes community members, it includes parents, it includes teachers, classified staff, it includes students, it includes at least one representative from all of our schools, and we also tried to there's a representative from MSA in the group, and there's an athletic director.
Your attempt to get a broad view of the institution.
Yeah, the committee is almost 40 members. We did our best to there's two board members on the committee. Yeah, go ahead, of course.
So Ross, they also use a criteria, right? So the bond implementation committee, 40 something people. This what we're getting down to, what are the most important projects? Basically, we only, we have 50 million, and so we're kind of prioritizing the first 100 million. But we spent a good part of a meeting talking about what's the criteria. So maybe I think it's performing arts at San Marin, but you think it's the gym at Sinaloa, and somebody else thinks it's so. Really, that's the one that we have the notes what those criteria are. The educational impacts, number one, very close to that with school safety. There are a couple, so there is a criteria that they're not just like, well, I go to Sinaloa, so I want the gym kind of thing. They really have been thoughtful about it. And so this behind us is just a way to come at it from a couple different places. What's the highest need? What's your most important priority? What's our biggest bang for the buck? So we're trying to look at things from a bunch of different ways, using a lot of different input to kind of come up with our final list of not only the 50 million, but the 100 million, because some projects like the Performing Arts building at Novato High, we get started and now it's going to take 5 years. So there might be some of the 50 million that we're doing now, and then it might actually tap into the other 50 million we're going to do 3 years from now. So it's actually a pretty complicated process when you think about the timelines for all these different facilities and how long they take. And if you want to put in a practice field that's a synthetic field, you might be able to do that next summer. But if you're going to plan a STEM building at San Marin, that might take 4 years, or a performing arts or something. So it gets a little complicated.
Yeah, so thank you for that clarification. The list of criteria,
Yes.
to me, is more interesting than what they voted. Because I think the real, so if you have that someplace you can publish in our Friday memo, or we can bring it before the public in some criteria. So that I appreciate. But it still seems like, I think this is maybe the same point the superintendent was trying to make. This is a question of what's the highest priority, and clearly we all agree that the failing roof at San Ramon is the highest priority, and the failing sewer, the fact that you can't go in the bathroom without wading through the water is probably the second priority. We're pretty clear about those kinds of priorities. This kind of, I'm waiting for him to finish with what he's doing.
Thank you. So we'll put it up there, but all of the materials from the meetings have been uploaded to the bond implementation website, so they're available for anyone to go look at, and we'll pull up.
Perfect.
We'll
Okay.
pull up.
I'm waiting.
There we go.
Perfect. So to me, so I'm going to turn around and look because my eyes won't focus that far away.
Even tinier?
Well, this is on the website.
I'm just going to call it up myself.
Okay. I'm waiting.
There you go.
I just want to show them the criteria.
Yep, that they came up, this is what the committee came up with, right? They developed their criteria. But the lower the number, the better. Okay, fine, okay. That's great, that's really valuable. So that to me is important. But so to the point I was trying to make, this still looks like we need to start, so let's get started on stuff that we know has high value. So if we're not positive about something, we still know we're spending it on, the money would be spent on something that we would choose to spend eventually. This is the high priority. But the point that the superintendent, I think, was making is that there's an overall program objective that we're targeting as a district, and some of those are long lead time items, which has nothing to do with high priority. It has to do with they're hard to do, and they may be expensive. And so someplace, a unified program between what's important to get done now and what's important that we finally end up with before we run out of money, $300 million and $22 million later, we need to have that integrated plan. So this gets us moving, and I'm thrilled to be moving, and we're moving on getting stuff done, and we'll have construction this summer. But it seems to me like that's just the first half of the conversation. The second half of the conversation is, okay, let's figure out what we in fact can get done with this money and what we have to have in scope. And things like the Performing Arts Center at Novato High is going to be more than a year-long project, and we have to start planning, doing stuff now if we're going to finish it by. So those are my thoughts. Is we need a second planning exercise that folds in with this. And I assume technology is really not in this because the technology meetings are this Thursday, and that work still has to be done.
Yeah, so there's been certain allocations that we've pulled aside to say, no, these are things for various reasons, like the roof at San Ramon, those deferred maintenance needs, those other things that we've basically said, we have to do these. We've talked to the committee about, why we made that decision, and we've come to consensus that, the group believes that is wise, wisdom, wise wisdom. But to your point, we will be looking at the first 100 million, which is roughly the first 5 to 6 years in the program, but also looking at, an example of it is potentially either some of the buildings at Novato High School or the Sinaloa Gym, where there is, one project has to be done before any other projects can be done to vacate the buildings that the other projects are going to be done in. And so that's when we're using our WLC, our program architects, Greystone West, our construction management team, to really look at those factors. And, we've talked about a lot of the other factors with them, including not having a campus be a construction zone for 10 straight years, potentially looking at that. So there's different things that we will be looking at that, and long-term planning was included on the final criteria ranking. Around that, to note some of those items that obviously our architects and construction managers will be better placed to help us out with. And the other thing, just real quickly on that criteria, I think it was important that the committee believed that there's a couple, not only is it important to look at, the top, they believed that a lot of these were important. So looking at projects that fit a lot of these criteria, as well as looking to make sure the final list covers all of the criteria. And so it's not just a simple, one size fits all. So they're giving us great feedback. The committee has been wonderful to work for, and we look forward to bringing them recommendations at the next committee meeting before the superintendent brings you recommendations.
Yep, thank you very much for the explanation and the criteria. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Trustee Mack, you're next.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Ross is talking about, the costs, had a very enlightening conversation at the end of the committee meeting with WLC and Greystone, and the original estimates that went into the bond language did include inflation, and we are very, very quickly eroding those estimates of inflation, going past them.
It's amazing how
in 1 year
the money goes away.
And it's because we're in California and we're doing the most expensive type of construction you can do. So
and there's a lot of other districts competing with us.
And there's a lot of competition out there right now. So the reality check for me is that we have some of these really large projects that need a huge runway to get going, namely the biggest one up there. And we got to get going early if we intend to do it. And we have to be aware that our numbers are going to be hard to hold us to. Two other quick
There's no other money, so we will make our budget. We just might not make our project.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We got to figure this out. So then the two other things, just to point out the methodology. This is a large committee. This isn't just 15 people. This is 40, 50. And we take up all of room 107, and we're grouped randomly every time. So different groups every time. And when this was done, before anybody went up and put their dots up, they sat and talked as a group. So there was a bit of sharing, a bit of de-emphasizing personal goals. Yes, I work at San Jose Middle School, but yes, I understand that San Ramon needs a roof, those sort of things. So there was a lot of that going on. As well, and this is just kind of an observation. It just happened this way. We couldn't avoid it. And I know I'm playing to type here, but because it was in the midst of spring sports season, we only had one sports person there. one AD, and he showed up with 5 minutes left in the meeting. So just be aware that this doesn't reflect any of the ADs or any of those stakeholders.
Shame
All
on
right,
them.
thank you, Trustee Aguilar.
Yeah, what are we doing to assure, because it is a big community and we were having many meetings, what are we doing to assure that all are being represented and that no one's being left behind? So one of the examples, for example, is the charter school. Want to make sure that we're including them, involving them, that we don't forget them, and making sure that they are expressing some of their needs. I know, there's talk about the multipurpose room, and so that's, and also, like another example would be the special education. And so, what are we doing to make sure that we don't slip through the cracks, and that they all have an opportunity to be involved?
Thank you. So the Novato Charter School has had either one or two representatives at all of the meetings. And special education is being represented as well. So we tried our best to get the best cross section of our district. I'm sure we weren't perfect, but we really did. We wanted community input. We wanted at least one representative from each school. We wanted one representative from all of our. So sorry.
So just so that people don't miss community planning meetings if they have, I'm not sure if they were all invited or not, but just, what are we want to make sure there's a way that they can always look up when the meetings are and just so they don't miss.
Yeah, all of it is on our bond implementation, which is on the front of our website. And the information from each of the meetings, including notes from each of the meetings, are posted after each meeting. We're doing our best to. You can note that these are all the groups that are represented, and more. But this is what fit on a page. So, yeah.
Thank you. Were you done? Okay.
So I want to make sure we're clear about one point, and it's a research question to you, Nancy. I believe there was specific language in the bond measure that spoke to funding for the charter school. I believe it was a certain percentage or a certain number. It wasn't. Whatever. But there's some. It's unlike any other school where we talked about a project list. I believe for the charter school there was a dollar amount. And could somebody check that? Because I want to make sure that while we include them in the thinking that's going on, if in fact we have a legal commitment to fund them by some other mechanism, that we honor the commitment we made and not do two confusing things. We do whatever the legal language calls out. So I just can't remember what it is, but could you look into it? And it's in the, it'll be right in the bond language.
The bond language, right?
Yeah, I will double check that for you.
Yeah, thanks. I just can't. I just think they're different by that because we did that on purpose. I think. Thank you.
Trustee Scott, thank you.
Just quick question: how are we, when these meetings are transpiring? Are we reaching our Latino community? Is this being translated in Spanish for them? How are we reaching those folks? Can you elaborate, please?
So we have a representative from the ELAC committee on the and I don't believe we have translated the notes, but we can look into that.
I just want to make sure that community is also feeling included in the process.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, great, trustees. Good discussion. Anybody else? Looks like the end of the comments. Yancy, thank you very much.
Leslie, thank you for finding that report. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Leslie, thank you very much for getting everything on the website, because really this is all up there.
Nancy's office is also helping with that as well, so
Yeah.
we're working as a team on that.
You credit
Okay.
We give him. Thank you. All right, we're on to our next item, first discussion action item 15A, approve the 2016-17 second interim budget report. And Yancy Hawkins and Nancy Walker are here. Fine. So, if this is all right with the rest of the board, I'd like to, since we have a member of the public here from the Citizens, item B, Citizens Oversight Committee, I'd like to suggest bringing that forward and hearing that first so she can go home. Agreeable?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, let's go ahead and do that. Move item B, appointment of members of the Bond Implementation Independent Citizens Oversight Committee. And Jeffrey, you are here.
Yep. We have 2 members.
And who's the second member, Yancy? Could
Bridget.
you-
We're voting
Okay.
you in as a member.
You're moving. Right now, we're doing item 15B. Yancy, do you want to go ahead and introduce this?
Absolutely. Thank you, Trustee Cooper. So one of the most important parts of the oversight and accountability that is included in the bond, which is a Proposition 39 bond, is the Citizens Oversight Committee. This committee is required by Proposition 39, and the board approved this committee on December 20th at the board meeting. The 60-day, it was required to be filled within 60 days of the election being entered into the minutes, which occurred at our January 17th, 2017 meeting. And so they don't give you a ton of time to find a great committee, but our community has really stepped up. We received a lot of applications. We whittled that down and did interviews. And I'm happy to recommend the appointment of 6 members to the committee. They include the president of the League of Women Voters, who previously ran a bond program in the county of Marin, a very active retiree that is also a member of the Bond Implementation Committee. So they'll be able to help translate what was talked about in the Bond Implementation Committee to the oversight piece. A fire captain from Novato Fire, a chamber member and a board member of Marin Realtors, and a member of the Bond Implementation Committee. A charter school parent and a former EPA life science enforcement officer. And then from a finance side, we have an MBA who was a portfolio manager for PNC Bank and Comerica Bank. And so we just have a wide range of really great backgrounds, knowledge, and I'm really, really excited to recommend them for appointment. One thing I would like to note is that currently one of the positions on the committee is unfilled. It is the representative from a bona fide taxpayer group. We did have an applicant who had noted that they were a member of a bona fide taxpayer group, but the definition is actually pretty narrow, and their membership actually didn't quite fit. So we will be actively reaching out to some Marin taxpayer groups to hopefully find a representative. We've also included 3 alternates for approval as well, as definitely there are times when we need alternates to be bumped up on that committee, as this will be a long bond process, and we will be moving forward there. Bridget, Jeffrey, if you could just raise your hand, and these are 2 of our just wonderful members that you were recommending for appointment, and we're just so thankful that they've raised their hand and offered their considerable experience and time, which is the biggest thing. So,
Thank you, and I just want to clarify on the website, on our online, this is called out as item C, so there was some confusion there, so I apologize for that. And I would like to thank the two of you and everyone else who's volunteered to serve on this very important oversight, Citizens Oversight Committee that we appreciate it. It's a very, very important part, as Yancey just said. And I would take any questions and/or a motion.
I'll take a motion to appoint the Citizens Oversight Committee as recommended, and I have a comment.
Okay.
To the two members.
Okay, hold on.
Second?
Yeah, let me take the second and then come back to your comment, if I could.
I'll second.
Okay, second.
So the two members, Jeffrey, thank you very much. I know you've got the best interests of this town at heart, and I appreciate your, sometimes pokey questions, but that's exactly the role. And I thank you very much for finding the time to do this. And Bridget, thank you. Welcome to a lot of fun time making sure that our kids in this town get a great education. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Good comments. All, any other comments? No? All in favor? That passes 7-0. I appreciate it. Thank you all for coming. Thanks, two of you, for coming tonight. Jeffrey, it's always good to see you. Now we're back to the first item. Yancey, item A, the second interim budget.
All right. Thank you, President Cooper. So this is the time of year before March 15th that we bring the second interim budget report to the board. Just as a reminder, the positive certification that we are recommending is that we can make our financial obligations for the current and 2 subsequent years out. The first interim really is a focus on you having a lot of the information for the current year, including your final enrollment, your final staffing, and the final governor's budget. The second interim, a lot of times, is an update from the first interim. So there, obviously, we have information since the end of October that we have. But it really is starting to look forward. It's the look forward. It's the basis that we start creating our 2017-18 budget based on. And it's the first projections that include the governor's January proposed budget for 2017-18. So that's always where there's a big piece. As you know, a majority of our revenue comes from LCFF sources, but it's also important to note the parcel tax revenue of 5%. It's very helpful, and other local revenue of 8%, including our foundation and our PTA revenues, as well as some grants, including the MCF and HOS grants. In terms of expenditure, obviously we're in a people business, and over 80% of our budget goes to salaries and benefits. Benefits will be hit on pretty heavily in a couple minutes, but pretty much in line with first interim, with a few notable changes. Revenues have been increased by 1.4 million, while expenditures have been increased by 1.8 million. I'll get to why that sounds high. It's not as high as it seems. But the net impact of about $400,000, and I'll get into that as we go through. About $1 million of both, or almost $1.1 million of the increase in revenues and expenses is actually money that actually never comes into or leaves the school district. The STRS on behalf payment is a portion of our the STRS liability that goes to STRS is paid directly by the state. A couple years ago, they started requiring districts to include that as a pass-through, basically in and out revenue to show that that expenditure. So this is just getting it in line with the most current estimates from the state around the STRS on behalf payment. In terms of other in and outs, the college readiness grant of $111,000 those expenditures, the revenue has been recognized, but the expenditures related to that have been also included, and as well as local grants and donations. So these are PTA or other grants that are individual, that could be boosters at our sites. And so that revenue is budgeted, and those expenditures are budgeted when the money comes in. So those are all in and out. When really we're looking at the impact of from first to second interim, we're looking at a couple of things. About $80,000 is around the Saturday school attendance recovery. Now that's an investment going forward to recover attendance in this year, which we won't see an impact of that until next year. So the Saturday school attendance recovery program will hopefully increase our attendance, but as we are in declining enrollment, it doesn't impact us until next year. We also have $150,000 increase in our excess cost. This is our cost that we pay to the Marin County Office of Education. The frustrating thing about this estimate actually is our numbers haven't changed and their expenditures haven't changed, but they have recalculated and fixed some errors in how they calculated this, which have increased our cost significantly by $150,000. So on the good look back, we've been getting a favorable rate the last couple of years, but obviously that's something that's tough to deal with midway through the year when you have an additional $150,000 expenditure with no real additional benefit. So that is obviously a frustration, and we've let the county office know our frustration in that. We also have additional special education expenditures related to placements, as well as the board knows, we've had a tough time filling some of our psychologist positions and a couple of the other positions where we've had to contract out when we are not available. So those are so some placements, some NPA costs, as well as those psychologist costs that we were looking at. We also have some other miscellaneous increasing, including the kiosk that recommendation that will come later tonight. So we've got a couple other things in those areas. Moving on to our multi-year projection. So when we look at our second interim this year, it's important to note, while it notes a net decrease in fund balance of $5 million, $1 million of that is money that is moving from Fund 1 to Fund 17 for future PERS and STIRS increase costs. So that is staying in the organization. And a couple $1 million of that is carryover funds from prior years, so not necessarily structural in nature, as well as some one-time costs. But where things change is in 2017-18. When you look at the increase in LCFF revenue, given a steady ADA, our LCFF would have increased about $800,000, would have been the increase in our LCFF funding. That is offset by the roughly 100 students that we are declining enrollment this year. So we've talked about the impacts of declining enrollment. We start seeing that next year. The state holds you harmless for 1 year, but you will start seeing that impact in 2017-18. Also, over the past couple of years, the governor has been giving districts a good bit of one-time money. 2 years, the governor and the state approved a little over $500 per student in one-time funding. In 2016-17, he approved $214 of one-time dollars, and the projection in his January budget for 2017-18 is $48. So a decrease of $166 per ADA in funding for one-time funds, which is about a $1.2 million decrease from 2016-17. And I'll get into it in a little bit, but the elephant in the room, obviously, is our increases in PERS and STIRS retirement costs. those equal about $1 million increase for next year, about 75%, 750,000 in STRS increases, and about 250,000 in projected PERS increases. So obviously, the 2017-18 budget is going to be challenging as we move forward, and some of those obviously move into 2018-19. When we're looking at LCF funding in the out years, I think a couple important things to note were the 9.93% increase in 2015-16 and the 4.3% increase in 2016-17 for LCFF increases. I think it's important to note that while on paper those sound like pretty great years for education funding, the offset to PERS and STRS costs, you've already seen the impact of that from what should have been very good years to just good years. Then you look towards 2017-18, negative 0.12%. That obviously includes the increase for the 1.48% COLA offset by our decrease in ADA. And then in 18-19, you see it moving up to 2.7%. But as I'll get into as we move forward to PERS and STRS, roughly 2% is taken off the top just there for PERS and STRS increases. So not exactly a rosy look forward from the governor and the state. This schedule, I think, is a pretty good representation of the increase in STRS and PERS costs over the next, starting in 2013-14 and moving to 2020-21. Just a couple quick reminders on STRS and PERS rates. We have no ability to impact to enact any changes in our STRS and PERS rate as a local board, or decide the benefit levels that the employees do get. The legislature approves those and imposes them on school districts, both the benefit level and the contributions required. So I think that's important. And as you look to the state saying that they're giving districts a lot more local control, sure, they're giving us some more local control, except they're not giving us any local control around funding those programs or setting benefit levels. But just a note, so using 2016-17 second interim salary levels, this schedule shows from about $4.6 million in PERS and STRS costs in 2013-14, those costs will rise to annually to $10.5 million projected in 2020-21. And so how that's increasing, the STRS rate increase is in law. The legislature passed it. It's moving from 8.25% in 2013-14 to 19.1% in 2020-21. It also gives the board a little bit more flexibility to go up to 20.25% if they deem necessary. Any other increases will need to go to the legislature. But as you can see, that's over a 10% increase in STRS, and that's an annual cost. The PERS rate was 11.44% in 2013-14, and it's projected to go to 24.9% in 2020-21. It's actually projected to go to 28.1% in 2024-25, but for the sake of this, I only went out to 2020-21. An important thing to note about the PERS rate, though, is that is set by the PERS board. That is not set by legislature, and we do not know that until June, what it is every year. So this is their projections that they've given to us. And just to kind of put into perspective, the impact of the STRS increase is about $1.7 million annually this year. That annual impact will increase to 4.5 annually in 2020-21. And just to put that, we could hire additional 45 teachers with those additional funds. The impact of the PERS is very similar. $300,000 annually in 2016-17. right to this year. That'll increase to $1.6 million annually in 2020-21 if their projections hold. And we could have hired over 25 additional classified employees, and that's food service workers, custodians, paraprofessionals in the classroom. These could do some wonderful things. We also obviously would have more ability to give salary increases. As you see, over a 10% increase in both of those rates is going to limit the district's ability. So with that, I think it's important to look at, okay, what are we looking at? And what are some of the possible budget solutions that we can start implementing now, that no matter what we're looking at in terms of budget monitoring. The next big information from the state is the governor's May revision. A lot of that will be based on April tax collections. April is the largest tax collection month of the year. And so it'll be interesting to watch those collections day by day in April. We're obviously looking very, very closely at enrollment. Our projections do show us decreasing again next year, but we're really trying to look at that data as hard as we can to see really where we're going to end up. We're also looking at employee retirements and separations. One thing that the board and NFT approved this year was an attempt to separate a stipend, I believe is the official word. But that was basically gave teachers who likely would have waited until May or June to tell us that they were leaving, that they could tell us early. So we've gotten some, we've gotten 15 notices related to those employee separations, which helps in a couple of ways. Obviously, it helps us bring highly qualified teachers into our classrooms as we know them early, but it also helps in taking that money out of the budget immediately because some of those retirements, we're not going to budget for those costs until we know they're coming. So that does help us a little bit as well. The other thing is looking at payroll and benefit rates, including health and welfare costs. So in terms of what are we doing? What is the budget office doing? What we're looking at staffing, closer to formula. We're looking at, we decreased 100 students last year, and we didn't really, decrease, much staffing. If you look at those 100 kids, are about $800,000 of annual revenue to us. So obviously, we need to adjust staffing accordingly. Obviously, the same thing, staffing shifts to match enrollment. That making sure that where we have enrollment decreases, we're keeping our staffing ratios so that when we have, bubbles increasing, like potentially at the high school level, that we've got money put aside to be able to hire those teachers. In terms of leveraging underutilized property, we're looking at the Hill campus. We're looking at working with the SELPA to potentially have an agreement in place to bring in additional revenue. We're looking at departmental budgets really closely this year. Really, each department's really going to need to justify all the expenditures in the budget. The intent to separate stipend, we talked about. One note on workers' compensation, we're hopeful that we will have a decrease in our workers' compensation rate next year due to some activity at the MSIA level, which is our joint powers authority around our insurance. We're also looking at special education efficiencies. What can we do to potentially bring some costs in-house and not use so many outside organizations so we can control those better and save costs. We're also looking at really analyzing our RDA revenue that we receive. We receive a revenue stream from our RDA revenue, and so we're doing a lot of it's not significant, but we're doing a lot of work to analyze it so that we can properly project what the next couple of years are going to look at. And then utility savings. The board moved forward with the power purchase agreement last year and moving into the summer. And so we're looking to finalize our projections on those savings based on the new usage once that's going. That's just what we're doing to start to look at this. Obviously, the governor's May revision is the next big item, but you're going to start hearing budget adoption and, the budget development process in the next couple of months as we move forward with that. So with that, I will, I always like to end with some positive information, some of our wonderful students that have been here at the board. But yeah, with that, I open it up to any questions.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions? Trustee Mack, we'll start with you.
So we have 100 enrollment decline that's going to hit us for 17-18, which is this year's number, right?
Yes.
It's lagged, basically.
It's a 1 year lag, yes.
Right. And then what's the number we anticipate for 18-19?
It's another 100 students in, but again, we will have a 1 year. And the one thing that's nice that Yvonne and the Ed Services team has looked at is, and the board approved, was that Saturday attendance recovery program. So while that is an investment and it'll take a couple years to do that, if we see an additional 20 ADA in this year, then we're held harmless at 20 students higher for next year. So that's one of the values of those programs.
Awesome. I know that helps. I would just ask that we, and I've always said this, take a long, hard look at what we can do to attract more to our high schools. We have school academies that are open to anybody. This is real money.
Good point. Trustee Scott?
Yancy, can you go over on the expenditures, on the expense side, the electricity with the 40,000, and then you talked about utility savings? Does that have any projections with the solar panels that we put up? Is this already included or no?
A conservative estimate on about a half year of savings was included in the budget, and that's actually a portion.
I don't think they were all implemented yet.
Exactly. So that's why you're seeing an increase to the budget in the current year related to that. The increase because they were not implemented. But we're also, once we implement that, we're going to have to go back and look at usage and really try to double down on making sure, because there is a common thing that's occurred in schools around solar panels is, oh, we've got solar panels, just
Leave the light on.
put the tanning salons on or whatever, the microwaves or whatever they are. And so we do have, obviously, we have a really successful program on the demand side that we're working on. But it's going to be important to really monitor that, when there is, maybe it's not conscious, but that when they see solar of, we don't have to worry about those demand side issues. And no, this is, as we noted in those out years, this is a time when we even more need to make sure that we're committing to that. But I'm one of those people that is, until I see the savings, I'm not going to bank it, there. So.
Okay, and then one last question in terms of the departmental budgets. Are you looking, or have you asked departments to cut a certain percentage, or what is that looking like going forward? Are you going to wait till after the May revise to implement anything there?
No, we're starting looking at now. We're starting to send out what we basically note as the departmental requests that go out. There's certain departmentals like the maintenance department that we have a set requirement that we need to set aside for routine restricted maintenance. And so, that will likely, but a lot of the other departments, we are saying you need to be taking a hard look at your budget, and really only.
You haven't set a hard line of
We
everybody's
haven't
cutting
set
10%.
a hard line
Nothing
of every,
like that.
but once those come back in, we're going to sit down at cabinet, at ADCO, and really start looking at those,
Right.
and really get to a place where we feel comfortable.
Okay, and you said just one last, may I? Okay, with the workers' compensation, you said that was going to be, we were going to see some savings?
We are hopeful, and it's a pretty technical matter, but there are two assessments that are being put on the districts right now, based on some old claims, and I can't really get into it significantly because it involves an individual. But circumstances in that case have allowed for the assessments for, they called it a fund balance stabilization, and actually going back to that year and zeroing out that year. It's complicated, but there were basically an assessment made on all districts in Marin County to pull up reserves to cover a case that are no longer needed. That's not to say we need to look at so we are hopeful that, with the removal of that we'll have some savings in workers' compensation, but we don't have the final usage from this year, which is the basis of our next year's rate. So if there are large increases to either our usage or the usage as a group as a whole, then we won't see those. But we are monitoring those, and we are, I would say, hopeful that we will receive some relief in that measure.
Okay, thank you.
One other, sorry, and I forgot to note it as part of, because I know there are these hot button items for the board, is around travel and training and contracted services. And so there was an increase from first interim to second interim. Majority of those increases were actually related to those local funds that were set aside. So we noted that when donations come in for PTAs from the boosters, from those other groups, the revenues are budgeted, and then the sites budget those individual expenditures on what they're going to be paying for. So there were increases in that. Some of them were at the district level, like the kiosk that we're going to hear a recommendation on later tonight. But a majority of those costs were either at the local level at that, or when we noted those NPA costs related to the special education costs.
Right. Trustee Nell?
Yeah, I had a question specific to page 4 of your report, the second interim changes from first interim. The revenue side, you've got a federal Medicare reimbursement. That was a negative $126,000. I was just wondering if you could explain in more detail what that is.
So we received some federal dollars related to some of our low-income students that we provide services to. Yeah.
So we put in our reimbursement claims, goes through a whole process. Last year, we received quite higher than what we had initially projected. This year, thinking, all right, we're on a roll again because we're providing the same services, but it is a reimbursement program. So we submit our claims, all of our documentation and hours, and cross our fingers and hope that we receive funding. So it's safe to say that we will probably see some of it, but at this point we took it out of the budget because we had not been tracking, and we wanted to share this information with you now versus at the end of the year. 2 years prior, we had $100,000 budgeted and we kept it in there all year, and then at the end of the year said, well, we didn't receive any money. So kind of to prepare ourselves, if we do not receive the funding at year end, we won't be shocked. So,
Are these applications straight to the feds, or do we go through a state?
Well, we're actually part of a consortium, and it goes through I believe it's the Contra County Office of Education. Yeah. So we kind of submit all of our information, and then it goes through there, and it's kind of a shared services consortium. So, and actually the federal dollars will flow through there, and they will actually cut us a check. So the last check was, a couple $100, and so that was the second quarter. So kind of made me think it might be wise to back those dollars out and, hope that we'll see something greater than that, maybe during the summer. So
Okay, that's.
we kind of went on we recognize it as we receive it, we budget and hope that it happens. And so this year, just because the revenues weren't tracking, we thought it would be safe to reduce it down and hope that we'll see those dollars.
It's important to know that the timing of these dollars is very unpredictable. And so we've done a couple things to try to, okay, we're not going to budget for any of the revenue, and when it comes in, we'll do that. But that seemed disingenuous when we had been receiving pretty consistently those funds. But as those funds are not tracking in the current year, we didn't feel comfortable leaving that additional revenue in the budget given timing. And so, but I think, as with a lot of Medicare and other related funding sources from the federal government, we need to be, it's uncertain at this time what impact might be to some of those programs in the near and not so near future.
Yeah, the reason I asked was because the state itself had overestimated reimbursements close to $500 million that's going to need to be accounted for at some point. I was just wondering if this was our portion of it, one way or the other, but it sounds like it might be a different application process. So
it is, but I do believe at the state level, who funnels a lot of this money through to us, that there is a freeze on it given that. And so it could impact. I don't think it's directly related to that, from my understanding, but I believe it could be impacted by the problems that the state is having, with the federal dollars, and looking at those much more carefully before.
Okay, well, exactly. I just was wondering if it was related to that error in estimation at the state level. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Butler.
I'm good.
Okay. Thank you guys, you and Nancy, for preparing all this and doing all this hard work. I know it's a ton of work. Just want to point out, and if you could just reiterate, I think the importance of, in these very, very uncertain times, with the governor says, well, it'll be, your revenue will be this, and who knows? We don't even know. It could go up, it could go down, but is this a time to be very conservative with reserves and that we do have? And could you talk just briefly about what the reserves could cover if we needed it to cover our payroll, for example? What's our payroll?
Absolutely. So if you look at our current reserve, which at the end of last year was about 17% usable. That's about 2 months of payroll for the school district. So even at that level, it's just from a cash flow standpoint, that's important. I think it's important to note, and the board took action on this to move $1 million last year and $1 million this year to Fund 17. I think and I said it was the elephant in the room, is those increases in PERS and STIRS rates that the district, over the last couple of years, the state has put in enough money so that it was only an offset to the revenue that the district received. Well, as you noted with the numbers that were with you tonight, it's eating up and going past those in the next couple of years. And so unless the state comes up with a way to fund additional contributions themselves, which I don't see happening, no matter how much pressure that educational groups put on them to do so, I think districts need to be conservative and really need to be looking at their budgets very carefully in these times and making sure they're well positioned for automatic increases. I think so the PERS rate, it's increasing, but we'll have to watch that. But the STIRS rate, which is 75% of our pension cost, that's in law. That's happening. That's going to go up to 19.1%. And one thing, just noting, the STIRS board just reduced their expectations for investment earnings. They reduced that down. And as nerdy accountant guy or actuarial will tell you just changing those rates by 1/4 to 0.5% make massive changes in your funding levels, your funding percentages. And so the legislation allowed the rate to go up to 20.25%, and I absolutely believe that will happen. If not above that with additional legislative action in the out years. So I think that's important. And one thing, sorry, just to note, I am so lucky to have Nancy Walker in the budget office. We are so lucky as a district to have that. She does 99.9% of this work, and I just come up here and take all the credit for it. So thank you, Nancy. I appreciate it.
So I guess the message that we're getting, oh, sorry, Trustee Mayor.
I'm just going to double down on this issue. I think, given where we are in terms of national circumstances and business outlook, there's some high uncertainties, and we just need to, including, like you said, if they change the yield, all of a sudden they have commitments to make in the pension program, and they'll dial their dial up, and that'll dial our dial down, and we won't have any control. So being conservative and maybe it's not even conservative, I guess it's more than that. It's like waking up at 3 a.m. regularly thinking of all the possible things that could go wrong, because there's, I think, the level of uncertainty in the financial markets and in the public sector is high, and we're just, I mean, it could be an attack on education, it could be an attack on pension funds, it could be, there's just a lot, and I'm just, the more cash we have in the bank protecting our position and protecting our employees' circumstances. So I don't know what to tell you. Just don't, my vote is as much caution as we can throw at this state, throw at it.
Absolutely.
That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Trustee Nell.
So I'm prepared to move on it, but I do have an announcement for the board that's related to this, and so I'll make a motion and then second, and then I'll make the announcement.
That'd be great. So you, Trustee Nell.
I'll move to accept the
Trustee Scott
second interim budget report.
Scott. And one
So
comment?
I wanted to just to, if you don't already know, your local joint legislative action committee, working together with the Marin County Board of Trustees and the committee, have come up with a plan to bring the pension deficit issue forward. As you recall earlier, when we went up to Sacramento, they essentially, the legislature just said, there's no one up here who's going to do anything about that for you down there. So we've decided with everyone here in this committee that this has to be more of a grassroots, the people are going to have to speak. So we've enlisted Joe Montero, who's a former superintendent for this school district, and he manages FICMAT, which stands for the Fiscal Crisis Management Team. And he's going to come and speak to the trustees on the 29th of March with a focus on this particular issue. And then after that presentation, JLAC and the Marin County Board will be hosting a discussion about whether we have to just sit here and take this, because quite frankly, we are the ones who are going to have to look to our community and say, okay, we're going to have to start talking about which schools we're going to have to close to come up with enough pension liability money in advance. In your report, you stated that we could have hired 45 teachers with the increases that are going on. The fact is we are going to have to fire 45 teachers if somebody somewhere doesn't do something about this particular problem in Sacramento. So just thought I would like to remind everyone, and I hope to see you on March 29th.
Thank you, Trustee Nell. There are some good comments. All right, I'm going to put it back in your hands. I think we're done. We have a first and a second. I'm sorry. Let's take a vote. All in favor? That passes 7-0. And thank you, Yancy, and thank you, Nancy, very much. We're on to the approval of budgets for San Ramon Roof, Olive, Novato High sewer replacements.
All right. Well, you get a lot of
Boy,
me
we're
tonight.
getting nitty gritty here. We're getting the recycled water and
All right. One thing, and so with all that fun talk of pensions and all those other things, I did forget one really important thing to note as part of our as part of the bond implementation update was some really good news that we received last Friday. Moody's has upgraded us to AA1, which is the second highest rating that you can get. And that is just wonderful news for us as a district. It really, I'd love to say that it was my, 2 months of hard work that really did it, but it's a career of work of this board, and really my predecessor and Nancy and their team of really putting into procedures, really doing a great job of fiscal management in the district. So, we had the second rating. S&P, we were confirmed as that same. Yeah. So Moody's was we were hopeful. We put on the hard sell, and because our community deserved it, and the board and the district deserved it. So we were upgraded. So sorry, that's just an additional quick item from the bond implementation that I forgot. And sometimes we don't celebrate our wins enough.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
if I could comment on that.
please.
Not to take anything away from the management of the district and this board itself, but I think I'd also like to congratulate the hardworking taxpayers
Absolutely.
of Novato, because a big part of our rating has to do with our citizens and their ability to pay their taxes, which is what leads to that higher rating. And what's good for them is that this higher rating is going to lead to a lower cost on the monies that we borrow for the improvements in our facilities. So good work in pitching that and putting it together, but credit is due where credit is due.
Thank you, Trustee Nell. Good point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something the whole community, we're going to be paying back less money, because of that. All right, on to the San Ramon roof and the sewer projects at Novato High School and Olive. Last meeting, the board approved the 3 projects. The 2 sewer projects are going to be lumped into a single project as we can look for cost savings going across. They are similar in nature. The Novato High School sewer and the Olive sewer are pretty straightforward projects, just based on a per foot amount and not a huge amount of change. Where really we need to look in is the San Ramon roof project. As we've known, the condition of that roof was direly in need of replacement. There are leaks around. There's obviously water damage around the roof and inside the buildings. So our construction management company, Greystone West, did a thorough review of the work, including the screens that were added as aesthetic screens, which have caused some pretty significant water intrusion related to those. We've looked at skylights, which have been a fairly significant form of water intrusion. And in a coring of the roof, there was conduit found running through the roofing, which will make it significantly more difficult to just pull up and put up a new roof. You're dealing with potentially electrical and data lines going through the roofing that are going to have to be completely looked at and rewired. So the construction costs of the project are projected at $1.3 million with contingencies and architecture costs, CM costs, IOR costs, all of the soft costs. The projected project cost is $1.8 million. Included in that $1.3 million of construction is basically a base bid estimate of about $900,000 and an additional $400,000 added on for the treatment of dry rot, the treatment of moving some of that conduit. And so right now, those are projected as allowances in a potential contract as we move forward on a bid situation. But Greystone West recommends a budget of $1.8 million, and I've reviewed it and agree with that. Obviously, more than we would like to pay for what is not a huge re-roofing project, but due to the complexity and the damage already done, and that conduit including there, that's what it's going to cost to fix the roof there. Now I noted the project. With that, I will. So with that negativity, the positivity is we were out there on Monday introducing Mike around, and the teachers out there are so excited. They feel that that they've been listened to, that this is a absolute necessity to happen. They deal with it wonderfully. They've got buckets in their classroom, and they're talking about science projects with it. And I mean, they do the best, and it just is a testament to the San Ramon community, but our district as a whole. With that, I'm happy to open it up to questions.
Thank you. Trustees, questions? Trustee Nell?
I couldn't help but notice this California Department of State architect fee at over $20,000, and I was just wondering is that fee going up, or is that a set percentage of the dollar amount? How does the state come to that fee?
It's a sliding scale percentage that's set based on cost, and so it's based on the specific project, the type of project, and then a sliding scale at that for the review cost of the project, depending on. But it's going to be a significant cost in a lot of our projects, and you're going to expect to see even larger DSA costs for some of our larger projects, including the STEM centers and the, especially when you look at
Structural issues.
Yeah, when you've got large structural issues and things like that take even more review. But no, it's expensive.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm taking the time to point out how the state is collecting for fees to basically approve a roof repair here. So it seems a bit excessive to me. That's all.
Trustee Miller.
Okay. So I'm going to get a little grumpy, and not at you. We rebuilt San Ramon 20 years ago, and we chose not to repair the roof because it was in good enough shape then. And we've had construction money available. In fact, I think the last conversation we had about elective construction money was to spend the last $4 million for some turf fields at San Marin and Novato High because we were changing the league meeting dates or something. And we chose not to do that because it was like the last $4 million that we had, and we just sat on it just in case. So during that time, apparently, somebody in this district knew that the roof at San Ramon was leaking and water was getting through the tar barrier and into the wood, and we had dry rot developing because we had buckets in the room. And I am unhappy, more than I can tell you, that we had structural decay going on, accelerated deterioration of our buildings, and we're out talking about turf fields and not paying attention to the structural integrity of the buildings. And I would like you to dig into it and make sure we have a policy about inspecting our buildings annually or every 5 years, where we go back through and find these kinds of issues and not get, because this is your good guess as to what it's going to cost, and you won't know until you get the roof torn off what it's actually going to cost. And that's just, we went through all that when we passed the first bond and told the community we'd never let things get this bad again, because we had the same problem over at San Jose Middle School where all the joists had rotted out because the roof had failed 5 years before and everything was soaking wet inside the roof. And here we are again, having the same conversation. And it seems to me like we just missed some inspection work that we should have done routinely, based on the information I heard tonight. And I, this is 5 minutes worth of information. There are people in the maintenance department who know more than I and can look at this. And what I would like to do is set a policy, that the board adopt a policy that says we do an inspection every 5 years in every building for structural integrity or something, because it seems, my sense is we miss something. And I mean, it's like making an accusation. We need the facts. We need to know what really happened and be able to set a policy that gives us a framework to be able to make sure that we as a community don't let our buildings deteriorate past the point where they cost lots to fix. And $2 million for a roof is lots. That's lots. So, there's my concern, and I would like to ask the board if they would, ask staff to do some research and come back with a policy, or a recommendation for a policy or a strategy, because it seems to me
I would support that.
we have a bigger problem than we just let a roof fail once.
Okay.
So that's my thoughts.
Trustee Mack, I'm going to get to you next. What is the current protocol for that? What do we do? What do we have in place to inspect our buildings or our roofs or?
So we are doing, we do assessments on our buildings annually.
That's my point.
But in this case, I mean, I can't speak to what happened in the past, but I can note that in the facilities master plan, and since I've been here, the number one,
It's been going on for several.
But the number one project that I heard out of the maintenance departments and my predecessor, and that was the San Ramon roof project as the most important project. But I think we do need to look at all of our properties. I think that the facilities master plan did envision several roofing projects of our sites that we really need to look at, including
Here's
San
a
Marin.
suggestion. Could you come back and maybe with some recommendations on how we could prevent this in the future, how we can monitor this moving forward? All of our
Absolutely.
buildings and.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Is that what you had in
I'm
mind?
looking for a go-forward fix, not a beat on the dead horse fix, yeah.
Right.
So,
Okay.
your best thinking would be appreciated.
Absolutely.
Trustee Mack and then Trustee Nell.
So 1.8 million, what was the number on Measure G for this line item? Do you recall?
Yeah, so it was about $1.3 million was the kind of, and so it is important to note that the facilities master plan is not
Sure.
meant to be a
I'm just trying to
detailed analysis,
keep a
but I think
mental
it's an
tally.
absolute great example of, when you're looking at projects, especially maintenance projects, number one, and number two, which a lot of the projects that we are, is modernization projects, is you don't know what you don't know until you get into that roof, until you get into that wall and find out that, what's in there, what are you gonna have to abate, that the electrical's not where the as-built note that it is. New construction, the estimates are a little bit better. The only problem is we don't have a huge chunk of our money isn't on new construction projects, as we're not necessarily building any new schools. We're pretty flat in enrollment. So a lot of it is taking some of those buildings that were built 40, 50 plus years ago and modernizing that. And so really a lot of the information that we're going to get is once we open up the walls, once we look into those maintenance projects of, so I think it's going to be a example of, when we move from the 50,000 foot level to the tabletop level of looking at these projects, there's going to be some unknowns. There's going to be some, when we looked at the coring and found conduit in a roof. That's not something that, a company is gonna, a construction management company is gonna say, you should really look for conduit in your roof, because it's not very common to put conduit in a roof. But to your point, absolutely, the unknowns, and I think you made a point earlier around escalation costs.
Yep.
I think it's important to note that there are 2 years of escalation costs put in this facilities master plan. The bond program is likely an 8 to 10 year process.
Right.
So, unless escalation costs stop, which I almost guarantee you they will not,
Yep.
it's going to be, we're going to have to be tough. We're going to have to try to keep as close to our scopes of our projects, and really
Right.
look to efficiencies and ways to leverage our money.
But just to be clear, the 1.8 already has some contingency built into it. So we feel pretty solid that if this is something we do right away, we can hit the number.
I can tell
or
you
beat
that
it.
doing it right away is going to be the best way to limit the additional
Exactly.
cost.
That's
There's
where
a
I'm going.
10% contingency in construction. There's a 5% design contingency involved, and there'll be allowances for
Right.
those services.
Okay.
But I will be, when we're talking new construction, when I talk some modernization, I'll be able to give you a more firm answer. But some of these maintenance projects, if they pull off the roof and there's something crazy
We
under
never
there,
know.
I'm going to be coming back to the board with pictures.
No, it's a reality check for all of us. Is the very first
Absolutely.
project we're doing, and boom, here we are with a massive increase. So I get it. One last question on this whole thing.
And then
Ross
let's try and
alluded
wrap
to
this up.
something about doing the roof 20 years ago. When you come back with the procedures, I'd like to know what that cost was to see comparison of that, inflate it, and see where we are now. I'm just curious.
All right.
I said we did not do the roof, we
No,
did
but
the
there was an
rest of the
estimate.
building.
But
20
there's an
years ago.
estimate.
Yeah.
There's
All
an
right,
estimate.
let's go. Trustee Nella, do you have anything?
Well, yeah, no, I was actually ready to move on to sewers,
Okay.
the exciting aspect of the world of sewers.
And
It's
then,
still on the
Maria,
list.
did you have a comment about the roof?
Well, I wanted to know if it would be possible to do the motion separately, or could it be, does it have to be together?
No, let's
has
do
to
it
be
together, I think. Or whatever you guys think, but it's together is appropriate.
Together. Talk sewers.
All right, sewers. Let's go ahead.
That was it. I'm waiting for Yancy to talk sewers.
Okay. Do you have anything to add on that?
Talk dirty to me, Nancy.
Oh my God. Ross.
No, I noted just a bit before, these are pretty standard processes. There's not as much that we're likely to find. We're pretty much talking about per unit costs. Greystone is comfortable with an estimate of about $407,000 for these projects, including contingencies. Obviously, we hope to come in under that, but that's the estimate at this point. And I am very comfortable with this moving forward.
All right. With that, thank you very much. I'm looking for a motion.
Yeah.
Maria
I'll
first,
second.
Derek second, all in favor? That
Just
passes
one
7.
very quick question. 4% at the bottom escalation when we already got 10% construction contingency, or 20% contingency and 10% design. So I'm just,
Let me look at that real quick.
it's
It-
10
I-
grand, but
It's, sorry, the escalation is not actually, so it's a form, and I apologize because I should just
Okay.
pull it off. There's no costs included, but it's included on the format, and that's just legitimately from budget time to bid time. And so that's, maybe 9 months of escalation is included in most of our projects. But they've included those potential escalations because they're starting to bid out for summer jobs now, and they feel fairly comfortable on their roofing costs on there. So no costs included, but I'll change the schedule going forward.
When are you going to
so
bid the
it's not
San Ramon roof?
I'm gonna do it at the end.
this summer.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you very much. We have a first and a second. We took a vote, so you have everything. Okay, let's retake that vote. We have a first and a second. Now we have all 7. Thank you very much. It passes. Thank you, Yancy, for that. And now we're on to our discussion about kiosk, mission and vision, and branding ideas for the district. And Jim Hogaboom will start us off on that.
Seriously.
You're gonna get spanked after we. So just a quick intro on this one. So right now, the graduate profile, which is the blue sheet that you guys have hopefully seen a lot of times, we've done some revisions to it, but this is really our guiding document. When we start our committees and everything really points to how we help our students with our graduate profile. We also have obviously our 4 board priorities. We have our goals, we have equity, but we also use project-based learning, and so there's a lot of things that we need to tie together. Education has changed dramatically, and the whole world has changed dramatically, and I think our district is doing some amazing, innovative things, and we frankly need to update our mission, vision, and graphics to represent that. So we talked about this some at our board retreat, and I think we've put a lot of great things in place. Last year, we spent a lot of time and a lot of meetings coming up with this. And so we're not looking at really going into super extensive meetings, but I think really through the use of kiosk and focus groups, we're going to bring this together. The first step is you'll look behind you on the wall. It no longer says our commitment to all for one, or whatever it said. So thank you, Derek, for your suggestions about that. So it's out with the old, in with the new. And with that, I will turn it over to Leslie, and she can take it from there.
Thank you, Jim. I would say you're saving the best for last, but you have 2 more items.
Yeah.
So,
but it's a nice thought.
yeah, it's a nice thought. So when you see Mickey Mouse, you think of the happiest place on earth, right? And when you see the swoosh, you think of Just Do It. So those iconic logos evoke an emotion that attach you to the brand. And when you see the Novato Unified School District logo, what do you think and feel? So tonight I'm excited to present with you a proposal for research and brand development for NUSD. I'm going to repeat some of the stuff that Jim just said, but I'm going to do it anyway. For the past couple of years, NUSD has been going through a transformation in teaching and learning. We have made significant strides in developing the 6 C's with our graduate profile, focusing our priorities on 4 key areas of equity, student success, staff success, and community involvement, focusing on project-based learning to engage our students, and recently adopting the Equity Imperative Declaration. While we're transforming on the inside, our outside looks the same. Our logo, taglines, mission, and vision. So to our community, it looks like the same old school district. But for those of us here at NUSD, we know that education is changing, and it continues to change, and it's changing for the better. We're striving to engage our students, provide resources they need to succeed, and opportunities to explore their interests. We want to show the community who we are now, not who we were. So Kiosk, a marketing company here in Novato, has a proposal to show who we are now. We worked with them last fall to produce the mailer taking schools from good to great. Kiosk also works with the City of Novato and the Blue Ribbon Coalition. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Jim Stevens, who's the Executive Vice President of Creative Strategy at Kiosk. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. How do I make it work before I get going? There we go. Okay. Well, I've learned a lot coming to this today. I think I should have gone in the roofing business, but I'm in marketing.
We would have sued you for...
I know Greg and Derek from when my kids were in school. And I guess I want to start there. We're going to run through quickly who Kiosk is and what the process will be if we do this. But I want to tell you, as a parent that had kids come through the school, Jim and his team brought Kiosk in, and I sat down with him, and he started telling me everything that was going on, and I'm like, I had no idea things had changed in the Novato School District. And so I think that's the reason when they said we need a brand, I'm saying you do, because I didn't even know there was solar panels going up until you guys told me. So we forget that when you're in this room, you think everybody's paying attention, but not everybody is. They are if the kids are in school, but for us, the taxpayers that kind of get away from the school district, we just think, like you said, it's the same old, must be the same old thing, and it's not. So what can Kiosk do? Well, I don't know if you know, we're a marketing agency here in Novato. We do primarily digital work. Okay, I got it. I can do this now. Believe it or not, there's 49 of us, and we're all over Portland and Toronto and England and Novato. This is the group here that's in Novato. A lot of them live and work in the area. Live in the area. We serve large clients like PayPal, City National Bank. We do work with Google and Tapjoy. A lot of our experience is with higher education. We've worked with the University of Texas, ASU Online. We just picked up Harvard, and this is all enrollment marketing. So this is to get people, students, to join these institutions with online learning degrees. And then just to show that we do know how to do good work for people in our community, we work with Shop Local, Novato Shop Local, and City of Novato, and others, as Leslie mentioned. So you guys have already covered what a brand does for you, and we touch all of the elements of the brand. And this is what you guys showed me when we walked in and said, "How does it look now?" So we know. Help me. What we really want to do mostly is infuse innovation and vitality into the school district. And you have it. It's not like you're faking it. You guys have it. The graduate profile's been formed, the 6 C's. It's really impressive. I was impressed with how we work with Google and Facebook and these others. And the fact that you're working with collaborative, teaching the students project-based learning is how companies are run today. And it's really great to see that they'll get a taste of that. This is also about just creating awareness that there's change and pride and respect from the teachers to the students to the PTA to you guys, that you feel good about what you're doing and who you're doing it with. So the process, it will take about 2 months, only because we're going to do the discovery phase, which is talking to a lot of different audiences. And you've told me who they all are, but we'll make sure that we cover the wide, from student voices to parents to PTAs and all that, and staff. So we want to make sure we get the stakeholders throughout the district. And we go in there and we do focus groups, and we find out we want to do it in person as opposed to a survey, because you get real emotion, you get this real sense of what's important to people and what's missing. From there, we will go on, and because not everybody can be reached in focus groups, we'll create online surveys and make it available to the larger audience to then answer questions about what we've discovered and offer their opinions. And from there, we develop the actual, what you were talking about, all the strategies and the mottos and all the messaging. And most importantly is the brand purpose, which you mentioned Disney really nailed with the create happiness for others. And we feel like we need to know what the school districts comes to work every day to do, what the teachers want to do, and get everyone unified around that purpose. Finally, we'll go into the visual language, the design of the logo, and how you will present yourself in a new, exciting way. And then the final thing Kiosk helps with is deploying it, wherever it needs to go with your team. The key deliverables, as I mentioned, were the interviews, the survey, and what is the creative blueprint. I want to bring that to bear. This is not going to be done, like Kiosk doesn't just go do this for you and bring you the answer. This is done collaboratively with Jim and his team. So the blueprint will be approved by everybody before we go further into the actual creative. And I can see, you showed us, Leslie, the dilemma of we're in a very visual world now. We look at our phones and quickly know what I need to do, and there's the symbol that I need, the app I need. We've got to figure out how to communicate the graduate profile in a very graphic way so that everybody can understand what it is and activate it in the classrooms. And this is what I'm going to end on, is just that it's going to be a very collaborative process. That's how Kiosk works. We have people whose children are in the school district right now, so it's good to get their voices and hear what they have to say also. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you. Trustees, fun stuff.
You go
Deputy
first, Derek.
Trustee Butler first.
You want to go?
Okay, I'll go first.
All right.
I'm really impressed, you guys. I am. I sincerely think that this proposal mirrors in so many ways we have a reputable firm with experience in education, and I'm just really impressed with the dollar amount. The amount of work that you're willing to do for the dollar amount seems giving in so many ways. And so,
Well, I can tell you our owner, who lives in Novato, is very invested in making the community grow and prosper and be, seen in a positive light. She took on the tourism Visit Novato just of her own accord because she went and approached them to say, we need to, drive visitors here. We need to have our hotels full. So she's doing this at a reduced rate, of course, but it's for, the good of the people that work at Kiosk also.
well, yeah, because I'm comfortable, stating that I've seen this level of work conducted for 10 times this dollar amount. So I think we should be objective and consider it. We know for a fact that Jim and his staff need these tools. So I say let's find out. Everyone get a chance to talk it over, but I think it's a good idea.
Okay, so I can't see the cost, is it?
All right, Trustee Butler, thank you. Trustee Nell.
Thank you for coming, and this is a great presentation. I appreciate it. I think one of the most important things is that the board is a big part of this. This is where we set the direction of the district, we set policy, and our mission and vision should come from the board, I think. So where do we fit in here, our role as a board? You didn't really specify that.
Yeah,
and
I don't
think it's
have
important
all the details of the process in front of me, but we were looking at how to involve the board in some of the focus groups and not have you all sit together and all share what you already know and believe, but to maybe pepper you through different groups so that you can hear what different groups or audiences are saying and add your voice to theirs. So that was one idea we had. So we're not intending to leave you
I think we
separate.
might need to have all of us collectively together, though, at some point. No. Yes.
Are you done?
No.
Why don't you finish? Okay.
Yeah, he wants to
so
respond.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I think it's kind of the accordion thing, right? So instead of, so we're gonna bring some focus groups together. That'll give us some clarity around some parts of it. Certainly, when we get to the deliverables like the graphic and all that kind of stuff. But really, it's also the mission, the vision. How do all these things fit together? So I think having you guys be part of that to the degree that you can through those focus groups are sitting in. But really, it's like getting the information, bringing it back, going out, bringing it back. And I think it's when we bring it back in where you guys get to weigh in before it's like, well, here's the final product, take it or leave it. I mean, I'm assuming
Yeah.
we're going to get, different,
I know.
Yeah,
there's
you're
gonna be
at that
iterations.
table.
And so what I hear you saying, and it is, the board, this is the board's work. The whatever motto or logo or slogan or whatever, you guys, it has to resonate with all of us, but particularly with you guys, because you're setting the direction for the
Yeah.
district. So we will find ways to keep bringing it back, to bring different choices, and
Okay.
and we need to do that in general because, we, cabinet, we could sit in that room over there and come up
Yeah.
with everything and just tell everybody what it is, but there's no buy-in, no one, so I hear
Right.
your point, and we'll do that.
Thank you.
Trustee Nell, and then Trustee Miller, and then Trustee Scott.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
So I agree with Derek. The money is it's a great value, I believe. I thought it was going to be a lot more than this. So good point. Also, to your point on visual is huge to me because we're appealing to a younger generation every year, younger and younger and younger, and getting more and more visual. The old graphic, it doesn't mean anything to me. And also, too, this is wonderful content. No one reads it. None of our parents read it. Let's put it that way. And totally agree, we need to visualize this as best we can. And the process we came up with this will be probably fairly similar to the way we come up with a graphic for it. It'll be interactive. We'll go back and forth a little bit. But there's a lot of work we can do, and I think it will be a huge value for us because we are out there trying to tell everybody what we're doing, and they're not hearing it half the time, well, more than half the time. So I think this is critical to getting that across. So thank you.
Trustee Miller.
Yeah. Thank you. And I appreciate the local interest in making this institution effective. And I particularly appreciate, for some other reasons, your work with online universities and the challenge they face in terms of creating a brand presence in markets that don't even know who they are. So I appreciate that experience. My concern, and I've shared this with the board before, and I'm in favor of moving forward on this, but we did this exercise before and we ended up painting the food truck a different color with a different logo. And at the end of the project, all we had was a food truck with a different logo and nothing else changed. And so we have yellow school buses that have one view and maintenance trucks that have the circle logo on it and a website that's got the square and a food truck with this kind of paintbrushy looking thing on it. And we've, none of which really says what's school about. It's a challenge because everybody remembers how they went to school when they were young. It's, you know, and you got, you know, people from 90 through age 6. It's a challenging thing to do, and I appreciate you're willing to step up and help us. And clearly, there's high value to us. You're clearly investing. Your owners said that I want to put a stake in the ground here, and I would be thrilled to work with you guys on that. My concern is I'm not sure where we're going to end up because it is such a hard thing to do. And I don't promise that I would be in favor of finally adopting whatever we come up with, but I think the exercise is really valuable for us to think through what this has to be. And I think it's more than it has to resonate with, you know, these 7 old people in this room. It's got to somehow tell a story in a modern world. And the modern world is the president's tweeting while, you know, our kids are walking around with headphones and cell phones while I'm looking for a copy of a newspaper I can buy and read and sit in a corner. It's a challenging world, and I appreciate your effort to try to help us get through this. And it's I'm uncertain about the outcome, but I'm sure we should take the journey. So thank you very much and your company for stepping up to make this offer. It's clearly high value, and you know, I look at the time you're going to spend and I go, thank you very much. So.
We don't know the outcome either, so.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe that's where the value is.
Yeah.
Is it's an open-ended question.
Trustee Scott, you're up.
Okay, so Derek, I really appreciate your input here because when I looked at the cost and after we just had the budget presentation, I'm thinking this really isn't a need to have kind of item. Yes, I'm not happy with what the current logo is. I don't think it's representative. I'm glad we painted over that. But I'm curious, I'm happy that you're local. I mean, there's a lot of pluses to it. I'm curious as to if we're going to involve our MSA students or our San Marin students. I just have some other concerns with it. I know that you're in this industry and you would know if that cost would be 10 times that amount. That certainly isn't something I could support. But my other concerns around this is, once we get the graphic, what's the cost to change the signs? What's the cost to put it on the stationery? What's the cost for everything else? And I just ask myself, is this a need or a want? And after listening to that budget, I think it's more of a want, not a need. So I need some convincing help.
Well, I think it's a need in the fact that you're appealing to those families and kids who are moving in the district, and you want them to come to our schools. So it goes back to what you were saying about the enrollment and attracting people to come here. If we look the same, then they think we are the same. And if we're changing on the outside. I mean, we have the bond going on and everything, but they may still think that the teaching and learning is still the same. However, it's different. We need to show that we're different. We need to show that. And we need to do that through our branding. And I've started looking at the cost of the implementation.
Yeah, that's not shown.
Right, and so I've talked to Mark. They've got about, how many do they have? He's got about 46 vehicles. And so you just put a sticker, I'll say a sticker, but he puts sort of a decal over that. He has clothing that he provides to his staff, I think 78 clothing items per year to the staff, so that's not a cost. Our letterhead, that's electronic. Our business cards, we do those ourselves, so that's electronic. Our website, that would be, I think, just some minor tweaks here and there. So I haven't really thought of anything really huge in, of having a cost associated with it. I think going forward with the bond projects and we want to put up signs, that's where we put our Novato Unified School District with a logo. And eventually if we do new school signs, we put our district on there as well. I don't think we go out right away and spend all this money doing all these things, but I think over time we implement them. I haven't really asked everybody yet, but the biggest ones I thought of were the vehicles and the clothing that they wear. And he replaces their clothing every year anyway. So it has been given some thought, but we can put some more thought to it and reach out and see what else.
Just would like to see a total number for that. Just, I mean, given what we just approved with the budget, I'm trying to be mindful in my fiduciary responsibility as a trustee serving on this board to not indulge in the wants and pay attention to the needs. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Right, and we're also going through a period of declining enrollment from the elementary, but we're getting them in the secondary. So what is that? Is that birth rates, or is that really they're going someplace else? What is that? And we've got these programs at our schools at Novato High and San Marin, and we're looking at different ones, the dual immersion at Linwood. So I think we want to attract the people here, and so we need something to attract them to.
You think a logo is going to do it?
I do.
Trustee.
It's the branding. It's the branding. It's being consistent throughout your district of how you look.
All right, thank you.
you.
Trustee Aguila?
Just whatever we decide to do, I'm just thankful that you're planning to include us in the decision making and the outcome. So that's important. I worked with Kiosk for the bully prevention campaign that you see, the posters that you see around in the windows, and so it's I'm looking forward to working with you. It's a pleasure working with you, and please thank the boss for reducing the price.
Trustee No.
And
then you.
So-
And then I think we're done.
Okay, just a couple of, one of the things I just wanted to comment, the process is impressive, and because it's open and it's involved stakeholders, it's very similar to the way we would go about deciding how to do a construction project. So, I mean, I just wanted to compliment you on and dealing with a public agency like this. And also because we're a public agency, it's one of those things where your concerns are valid, and I for one don't want to spend a lot of money on things just for a logo. That's not how we want to. We don't want to think about it that way, because it's not just that. But so what's interesting to the advantage we have as a public agency, we don't have to roll out a whole new brand and rebrand everything. Our awnings, our cars, our uniform. We're going to replace the clothes as they wear out and new people are hired and so forth. That we would pay for that anyway. It's either be the old logo or the new logo. The truck, the vehicles, over time, maybe we would just decide not to do that kind of stuff. The value is in communication, and it's hard to put a price on that. But basically, the illusion of communication is that you have it. And when people aren't communicating, they're not getting things done, and we're not succeeding together. And the advantage to a consistent brand, which is what I refer to these in this world, it's more about the tools they're going to have in communicating with us and others in a consistent way. They'll have icons and items and things that they can go to. They're going to be more efficient in the digital world primarily, and that's the cost of reproduction or repurposing those things isn't going to be that great, I think, especially how we're going to be able to approach it, economically and as needed. So I think it's really, all of this is really about the advantage of communicating clearly with people, and the better job we do that, I think the more successful we'll be all around. And so that's the value for me, and I think in any form of communication. So that's why I agree with your concerns about implementation and production, but that's really not where it's at.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Trustee Miller.
Just to recap, I think it's worth the study, but if the cost of implementation is $250,000, then we're not going to do this. I'm not going to approve it. We're going to stop. But we're going to find out if there's value
to Shelley's
cost
point, if
by
I-
doing the study.
What you get, the other deliverable I probably didn't clarify, is there's a brand guidelines that you'll get. And we give this to every client we've ever worked with for branding. You can give that to your MSA students. You can give that to the students, and now they know it's actually part of what they would do at Google or Facebook. It's like how to take that and then apply whatever communication is coming from the school district, whether it's a video, trailer, that talks about something exciting that's happening at STEM. It should be branded, it's part of the school district. They'll know the rules of how to do that. And so kiosk is not going to be coming back around to do all of your implementations.
What we get from you, I think we're going to get from you, is a framework. And so right now we have a Nobel's brand that somebody is pushing along, and we have an MSA brand that somebody's pushing along, and we have the STEM Marin brand that somebody's pushing along. And if we could take all of that and turn those into something stronger, that would have value. But we've got everybody trying to do this on a shoestring in their own area, making up, they read the same book you read. They maybe didn't write the book like you guys did, but they read it and they think they know what they're doing. And we've got all these small-time attempts, and we don't have some consolidation. So I think it's worth the study to find out.
They're doing
but the
that
follow-through is going to be what's important.
They're doing that for
Exactly.
recruitment?
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when
we get students coming in, how many, about 300 students come from out of district to MSA?
Right.
About, they recruit. And that's, a student's worth about
Make it happen, right?
$6,000 a year or something. Yeah.
And that's the point too, because there's a return on this investment, which is those 100 kids that we want to bring in.
That's it.
So there's an ROI to
well,
this.
if-
It's a soft ROI, but there
If we're
is
successful, if we just
Right.
have a book and don't use it,
we have to execute.
it's a throwaway.
We have to
All
execute.
right, guys and ladies and guys, and
I'm done.
I think we've had good comments, good discussion. Could I call for a motion to see where we're at on this? Trustee Mack and then Trustee Millerick and
No.
Okay, Trustee Nell. Sorry, Gladys. All in favor?
Let's
That
spend 24
is
grand and see what we
six,
get.
6 in favor, 1 opposed.
Let's see if
I
we can
didn't even
actually
raise
get all
my
these
hand yet.
cats herded.
Let's take the vote again. All in favor? Opposed? 6 in favor, 1 opposed. Thank you very much for coming. That's great. All right. We've got a couple more items. Be patient. Do we want to carry on? It's after 10. We've got 3 more items. Board?
Yeah.
Want to keep
Yeah,
going? Okay.
Let's try to get through these, yeah.
So 15E, discussion approve amended resolution 22 to move Board of Trustees election from odd to even numbered years to occur during statewide general elections in 2017. And Superintendent Hogenboom will present that.
Thank you, President Cooper. So you voted on February 14th on Valentine's Day to approve Resolution 22, which is basically in response to Senate Bill 415 to move the trustee elections from odd to even number years. The 2 reasons to do that were to try to make sure that we had higher turnout rates and to cut costs. And so back then, you had 3 choices. You could implement that in 2017, you could implement it in 2019, or you could even implement it in 2021. It just had to be done by 2022. So the board had a discussion about this, and we talked to the registrar of voters and found out that in those odd year elections, we would have a fewer than, or more greater than a 25% drop. So it was obvious that we needed to do that. I commend the board because you were trying not to be self-serving. By doing it in 2017 and by doing it in 2019, you would put that down the line. So I commend you for that. But what's happened is that all the other, well, most of the other school districts are moving to do this right now in 2017. And if everybody except us and a couple other districts move to do that, the bottom line is what it's going to do is increase the cost of the elections. So it's a rough estimate from Linda Roberts at the County of Marin Registrar of Voters, but her rough estimates are $4 to $6 per voter, which means it's a range, I think, from 132,000 to 198. She told me again and again, it's a rough estimate because we don't know exactly how many districts, special districts are going to go with that. There's the cities which still need to go. So really our hands are kind of tied on this one. I did put in there what we spend. We basically allocate about $50,000 in our board budget to cover the cost of elections, and that's kind of what the average has been over the last 4 years. So with that, I also appreciate Trustee Scott, who's kind of looked into some other alternatives. Could we get some help from the Board of Supervisors? And Shelley will probably talk to this. So we've tried to see, is there any other way to kind of make sure that we could do it in 2019, but it doesn't look like we can. There's some restrictions. If we're going to go and do this, it's got to be 240 days before the election. So that's March 10th, which is on Friday or whatever. So tonight's our opportunity to do that. We don't have a lot of time to sit around and look at it. You can see on the attachment is the amendment, which basically is the only difference than the original resolution is you've got the date of 2017 instead of 2019, which is when this would take effect. And then you have a copy of the districts and what they've done. And I believe that there's only a couple left. I think that Dixie is having a special meeting tonight, and I believe that Corner Madera, Larkspur is having a meeting tomorrow night. Most of the other districts have already passed this. Tam was the first one that did it. And like I said, there's a bunch of special districts as well that'll be doing this. So my recommendation is for the board to avoid a huge increase in costs and adopt the amended resolution 22, which would take effect in 2017 instead of 2019. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good explanation. Board, any comments on that?
Just a question. So roughly, 50, 70 or so, 70 in 2015 was our cost for doing an odd year election. I'm looking at the, okay. And basically, we're hearing that we would basically split the cost of the $130,000 to $198,000 amongst a very small pool. That's the key. So there's a good chance that our number would go over six figures. Okay.
Yeah.
So I understand. And then, just curious, when we move into an even year, what's our cost going to be for an election? I know it's going to be a lot less, but I'm just curious how much less.
Well, on average, I guess we would say it's been about 50,000.
Even in an even year?
Oh, yeah, and the other, I'm not
I
sure
said
what
that,
it's
but-
been, but then, I mean, there's going to be actually even more districts that are going to be splitting it, so whatever it has been, I would assume it's going to come down.
Yeah, okay. I'm just getting a sense for
Because
the
everybody's going to, there's going to be more.
It changes every year because it's based on the number of voters. There's a printing
Well, I get that. I
cost.
just want to get an order of magnitude. It sounds like it's going to go at least half of what we've historically paid. Okay.
Right. Trustee Miller?
This fiscally, we save the district and therefore the voters 50 grand or up to 100 grand
Six
by making
figures.
this change to move forward.
More,
So,
yeah.
yeah, so I'll move the revised motion to put the election 2017. I don't see how we can afford not to do it. Fiscally, we look irresponsible.
Thank you. We have a first.
Now that we know more.
Second, Shelley Scott. All in favor?
Thank you, Shelley.
Passes 7 to nothing.
Do we have one more item, or we?
We have two more items. We have one I pulled from
That's
consent.
right. I forgot.
But the last one, discussion action is Board Professional Development Conference, discussion about that, and Superintendent Hogebom will.
So I'll try to be quick on this one as well, and I think Shelley is right that we need to be mindful of our costs, but I think that in the past, we've always, I guess for the past, I don't know, Ross, you're the historian, 50 years, gone to California School Board Association Conference, which usually rotates between San Francisco and San Diego. I think it makes sense for us still to go in San Francisco because we save a lot of money in travel and hotel that we don't have to do. But that conference has pretty much a lot of the same speakers, a lot of the same topics, and it seems to me that it would be worth your while to try a different innovative conference. I think board professional development is huge. Debbie, I mean, you guys are supposed to be setting the overall goals and policies for the district. I don't think you should feel bad about spending you go to one conference a year. I think you guys should go to more professional development stuff. You're supposed to be up to speed on the latest innovations in education. You're supposed to be aware of the best practices. So I think that this is the only money that you really spend on your own professional development that I know of, and I think it's totally worth it. And you, as a board member, I think have a responsibility for your own professional development and your own learning. So I don't really care whether it's Ed Leader 21 or not. I think that you do have a responsibility to spend money on your own education. I've been to Ed Leader 21 conference probably 4 or 5 times. There's a lot of school districts there that are doing some pretty amazing things with the graduate profile and 21st century skills, great speakers. I think it'd be a great opportunity for you to network with some of those other board members there. I mean, it's not the best conference of all time, but I think it's one of the better ones that I've been to. We usually bring our admin team to that. So it is in Atlanta, Georgia this year from October 3rd to 5th. And so the difference between going to Atlanta from the 3rd to 5th as opposed to going to San Diego in December is like $1,700. So my recommendation is that you consider attending the Ed Leader 21 conference in Atlanta instead of the CSBA conference in San Diego.
Thank you. Bring it back to the board. Trustee Millerick.
So historically, because the CSBA alternates at San Diego here, when it's in San Francisco, like 5 of 7 trustees end up getting there. When it's in San Diego, 2, maybe 3 trustees, and the superintendent goes sometimes. So the board has been pretty frugal about spending education and travel budget just as a matter of course. Try to go to the less expensive alternative if you can wait a year. I don't have any problem with changing this venue. I think that's got some value. Maybe we don't send every trustee. Maybe the way we find out is we say, okay, who wants to go, and we send a delegation that we agree to. So broadening professional development is always important, and the world is changing quickly. On the other hand, what's important in the outside of California isn't as important as what's inside of California. So there's a balance, but we don't have to send everybody. You could try it by sending a couple. So.
All right. Thank you, Trustee Miller.
There's the history as far as I know.
Yeah. Anybody else? Motion? Oh.
I'll just say really quick, being the new trustee in the room, I found CSBA to be extremely valuable. It really helped me get up to speed. Still getting up to speed. First year was awesome. I learned a lot. This last time, I know you guys maybe didn't get as much out of it, but I felt like I still did. So maybe there's something to be said for, depending on where you are in your tenure, there's a bit of a ramp up. Maybe you go for a few years, but I can certainly see after a while, every other year makes sense. I get it. It gets stale. So.
All right. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Trustee Aguila? Did you have a comment?
No, I was gonna just make a motion.
Oh, motion? Okay. So we have a first. How about a second?
I second. Second, I'm in favor of it.
Trustee Scott, I think you were first. All in favor?
It's fine.
That's fine, yeah. All in favor?
Yeah, I'm in favor.
It was Scott. She put her hand up first, so I took it first. All right.
You pulled item G, right?
I pulled item G, and Mr. Hawkins will discuss this, present this.
Thank you, President Cooper. The reason I had asked President Cooper to pull this item was not because of any issues with the item. I still believe it's a consent item, but the board, just timing. Because the board approves their consent calendar at the beginning of the meeting, it would have been before the district had approved the budget for the project, and I did not want the board to have approved a contract without approving the budget for the project. Nothing else I really, one as voting, the project notes that it's based on a construction cost of $900,000. And that's because the design work is going to be for design work for about $900,000. I don't want to be paying architecture costs on what construction workers are going to be, or construction team is going to be going in and fixing things that they find as they go, of, dry rot and things like that. So in order to be fiscally sensitive, we based it on the design cost, the design for the construction cost. So, and that's a maximum.
All right, thank you. Question? Okay, great. Thank you. First and a second by Trustee Nell. All in favor? 7-0. Thank you. That concludes our meeting for this evening. Meeting is adjourned.